Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a meeting of the North Penn School District Board of School Directors, February 9th, 1999. Tonight's meeting is our regularly scheduled work session. Okay. That's too much. A lot of kids out there. Well, it says Donna. Okay, did you bring your kids? No, yeah. I kids. Too much. I didn't say that. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let me start again. Welcome you again. Tonight's meeting is our regularly scheduled work session. We will also be presenting proclamations to outstanding students. The meeting is being videotaped for community cable channels. Individuals attending this meeting and attending to speak to the board should be aware that they are being videotaped. In order to meet the requirements of the Pennsylvania Sunshine Law, it is necessary to record the names of all citizens who speak to the board during the meeting. To assure compliance with this requirement, it is essential that those planning to address the board come to the microphone and state their name and address. Members of the audience are asked to limit their questions and comments to no more than 5 minutes. This limit will permit time for all those who wish to speak to the board to do so. Whenever members of the audience exceed this time limit, the board president may ask the individual to yield the microphone to the next speaker. And this is in reference to board policy 8344.2. This time, would Mr. Sowers lead us in a pledge of allegiance, please?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which stands one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
One thing you'll learn here, Mr. Sowers, when you're on our payroll, you're on our payroll. You're asked to do the pledge, you do the pledge. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, special highlight of our life on school board is to meet students, outstanding students, and to meet with their parents also. This time we have Jason Harris, and I'd like to turn the floor over to Dr. Haslett.
Thank you, Mrs. Mango. It's my pleasure to introduce to you tonight Jason Harris. And if you read the newspaper article that was written about Jason, it started out by saying he had a lot in common with the Chicago Bulls, and besides his height. Jason had a distinguished honor this year in winning the Geography Bee for the 3rd straight year. Not just 1 year, but I'll say that again, 3 straight years. In a competition January 12th at Plymouth White Marsh High School. Competitors needed to know a great deal about current events, know it faster than their competitors. And it wasn't just a competition in knowing where capitals were, etc. A lot of it dealt, as I said, with current events. Jason also said that he really never took a geography course, but he learned all he learned through the extensive reading that he does. And I think that that's an important fact to point out as we in the district try to encourage reading with our reading programs. And this is an example of someone who has applied that, and obviously you can see that success. So we're honored to have Jason here tonight and honor him and congratulate him for something that hasn't been done before in winning this competition.
Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for Jason. We just asked Jason how many questions was he asked in the competition, and he said in about a half an hour, 60 to 70 questions citing locations, which is quite remarkable when we have board members that couldn't find Camden. We won't mention any names, but Jason, you make us very proud. Thank you. Okay, this time, Mr. Jim Finnemore.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to introduce to you to be recognized, Mitchell Sipe. Mitch participated in a program that's open to juniors and seniors across the state of Pennsylvania. It's known as the United States Senate Youth Program, sponsored by the William Randolph Hearst Foundation. This is the 37th year for this particular program, and for the first time in the history of North Penn High School, Mitch represented us and was selected as one of the 2 state winners of this scholarship program, and Mitch will now be able to go on to Washington, D.C. and participate with 101 other students from across the country in a very, very prestigious scholarship program. So I present to you Mitchell Sipe. Secondly, we had the opportunity at the high school to receive some information back in the fall involving a program at Chestnut Hill College involving the United Nations Day program. And we had about 42 students attend that program. And from that program, a group of our students brought the ideas back involving the Declaration of Human Rights, which the United Nations was recognizing the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Human Rights this past fall. A group of our students developed a program at the high school and prepared an afternoon symposium on the idea of the Declaration of Human Rights. And from that group, 2 of our students were selected to go to the United Nations in December to represent North Penn High School and other schools here in Montgomery County at the student program recognizing the Declaration of Human Rights and having discussions among their peers from across the northeastern part of the United States. Within that program, Melissa Croak and Krupa Patel were part of that program representing North Penn High School, and Melissa was selected as one of 8 student speakers to be part of that program. So I'd like to present to you for your recognition Krupa Patel and Melissa Croak.
See how the women handle it. Every single awards opportunity is the same. Nice trip. Oh, wait. No. It's only water. This tape is going to be saved. Tape to Mr. and Mrs. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, another round of applause for all please.
Mr. Federmeyer, would you come forward, please? We'd also like to recognize Mr. Federmeyer for the work that he does, not only in his leadership in the Social Studies Department, but with all student activities.
Dr. Davis Gears. Now listen, folks, we've made it a cute little habit here of sending the video of you tripping to your parents. But, you know, we don't want it to be a line item in the budget, okay? So we're getting more and more of these every opportunity we have to give proclamations, so be careful. Doctor.
Earlier this year, we received an invitation to perform at the program mentioned earlier by Mr. Federmeyer, the 50th anniversary of the celebration of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And so we put the group together, rehearsed through dinner times between other rehearsals, and we had a wonderful time going to New York City for the day and performing at the UN. Some of the students not here tonight because there are other performances going on at this very moment and rehearsals, but I'll read the whole list if I may, and those who are here will be acknowledged. Matt Buckley, John Duchnowski, Kim Dunn, Jason Fine, Mike Gubitosa, Chad Hussein, Susan Lander, Randy Moyer, Jess Orgira,
Hey, Dave,
Amanda Parker.
We want to hand out each one to them and they can come around. So once you start that name again, so we can
Sure.
hand each one of them
Okay.
their proclamation.
Okay. Again, these are the ambassadors, North Penn High School ambassadors. The first one was Matt Buckley. John Duchnowski. Kim Dunn is not here this evening. Jason Fine. Mike Gubitosa is at jazz band rehearsal. Chad Hussein. Susan Lander. Randy Moyer is not here, nor is Jess Orgira. Amanda Parker. Michelle Register. Christine Roberts. Mitch Seipt. Melissa Warburton. Sorry. Dan Watson Bay. Tim Ware also is not here this evening, and those are the North Penn High School ambassadors.
Dr. Chair. Again, on behalf of the district, we appreciate your leadership, and we know these accomplishments really couldn't be possible without such leadership from our staff.
Mr. Heller.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This past fall season, the Marching Knights competed in two separate circuits. One was called the Bands of America Circuit, where they traveled up to Hofstra University up in Long Island, New York. There they placed fifth, and what's important about this is this score can be placed, the Bands of America Circuit's a national circuit. With that fifth place score, you can take that score that they earned and register it across this country. And if you were to do that, they were to be recognized as probably one of the top 25 bands across this country. So that was one of the accomplishments this year. The other is they competed in the United States Scholastic Band Association circuit, where they traveled up to Giant Stadium. And for the third year in a row, they won the Group 5 Open Championship, and they completed the season undefeated. Before I introduce you to the students, I just want to say this has been a difficult year with the construction going on, difficult as far as transition, and I wanted to thank, well, obviously my wife, so I can go home and be happy about that. You know. But I wanted to thank Dr. Vince Cotter for all his help, and Art Wood for all his help for getting us. They were instrumental. Well, I didn't mean that one either. They were very helpful in getting this difficult transition. So I want to thank those two gentlemen as well. I'd like to introduce to you four of North Penn's finest, and they are the leaders of the Marching Knights, a senior and band president, Dean Caravoulias. A senior and the band front president, Laurie Carbone. A junior member, Brian Enline, one of the drum majors. And the other drum major is also a junior, Anna Marie Cunningham. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. One moment.
Do we shake their hands?
Not yet.
Okay.
Ted, I'm not a person that likes to get in a whole lot of repetition, but one thing that seems to repeat itself year in and year out again is honoring Ted and his leadership with the band. And I think we're extremely lucky in this district to have such a fine professional and leader students.
Another round of applause.
I think maybe one added comment. I think we've been struggling with these cables, it seems like forever. And after watching the band this year, I think I have an additional goal for Ted next year. And that's to make sure that we can orchestrate this so it doesn't happen.
Hey, the girls' swim team has done the best job.
You're right.
Going through here without a casualty. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, if we could unite our hearts and minds for just a moment. Those of you that would be willing to take a moment of silence, we ask that you do so, and those that would join in a very short prayer provided to us by John Schilling on behalf of student Matt Walsh and teacher Kathy Monahan. And John, if you would do that, please.
All right, let's pray. Father, we grieve with the families of the passing of these two people. We ask that you comfort the families and uphold them. Help them be drawn near to you, Father. Help them know that you are God, you are the great comforter. Help us to encourage them and to pray for them during this loss. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. The district has taken an extreme loss this week, not only in staff but in students. And we're very, very popular and very, very loved throughout the entire district, both parties. Ladies and gentlemen, just some changes on the agenda tonight. We will have a presentation by Dr. Michael Irwin on North Monco Technical Career Center, an update on what is happening there, mostly, and as always, good news. And then right from there, we will move the redistricting up after Dr. Irwin. Those of you that are here, I know a lot of you are here for that, and to wait through the whole evening would not be fair to you and your young children. Dr. Irwin.
First, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to meet with you tonight, talk about our school. What I'd like to do first is to first acknowledge some North Penn students. It just so happened that we had our VICA competitions. VICA is a vocational student organization, Vocational Industrial Clubs of America, and they sponsor competitions for students in their trade areas. And this competition encompassed schools all across basically Montgomery County, Bucks County, and Delaware County. This was rather unique. It just so happened that we have 5 gold medal winners. These are first place winners from North Penn. Chris Ulmer in air-cooled gas engine, Jeff Craig in diesel equipment, Mike Rivera in HVAC, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, Matt Sowers in residential wiring, Sean Wall in technical drafting. And I don't think in all my years I've seen this many kids from one school that have been able to win this competition. This is quite an achievement for these kids. They'll be going to compete at the state level. We had a number of second place winners from North Penn, John Eatkin in advertising design, Mark Randazzo in commercial baking, Doug Johnson in computer maintenance technology, Jeff Rao in criminal justice, Matt Greiger in graphic communications, and Josh Greaser, job skill demonstrations. These are all North Penn students. And then we had 2 North Penn students who placed 3rd in the competitions in their fields, Brandon Kay and Courtney Shaw. Brandon Kay was in automotive service technology. Courtney Shaw was in cosmetology. All told, our school had 7 golds, 8 silvers, and 6 bronze in approximately 40 competitions. I'd like to begin by first talking about some of the changes at our school. Over the past couple of years, we've made a number of changes to the facility itself, and I'll be talking about that a little bit later, but we also made a number of changes to the programs. We added some programs. If you look at these new programs and a lot of the other kinds of initiatives at the school, we're trying to create as many pathways for students into associate degree programs or possibly 4-year degree programs. All of these programs are like that. Protective services prepares students to go into the broad field of protective services, from emergency medical technicians, working in fire departments, working in law enforcement fields. We also have a program in horticulture, in biotechnology. Right now we're in the process of recruiting students for biotechnology. This program is going to be in high demand. It's a situation where students actually apply and go through an interview process to get into the program. Allied health. This is a rather unique program that we work jointly with North Penn Hospital. And what's interesting is recently KYW TV came in and did a documentary, a little blurb about it, and showed it on their news program. So I brought it along with me tonight, and if I could just take a couple of minutes and show that.
Live from Independence Mall, KYW3 Eyewitness News.
Well, talk about hands-on experience. Some area high school students are getting some real-life job training working at an area hospital.
And Robin Rieger joins us to tell us about it in today's Cool School Report. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning, guys. Were either one of you candy stripers?
Nah, my sister was. I wasn't, no.
No?
For about 5 minutes.
We have to hear that story.
Good morning, everybody. High school seniors are busy this time of the year preparing for college and trying to decide what kind of career path to follow. And today's Cool School will introduce you to some seniors who have already made career decisions and have gotten a jump on their training, thanks to North Penn Hospital and the Northern Montgomery County Technical Career Center.
How's it going in there, Kate?
Well, let's see the back of the chest wall and the spinal column. Ooh, one big whopping tumor.
To a newcomer, working in a hospital may not actually be as exciting or dramatic as it looks on Chicago Hope. But to 15 high school seniors from Northern Montgomery County, that's okay.
It kind of puts your whole career in perspective. It's not all the glamour like on TV. You're not saving lives every day. You're changing beds and bedpans.
Michael McNally is a senior at Wissahickon High School. Part of his class load includes spending his mornings making rounds at North Penn Hospital. It's a partnership between the hospital and North Montgo Technical Career Center. Kathleen Mack is their instructor.
They rotate through 15 different departments of the hospital. That includes emergency room, respiratory care, cardiology. They go to patient care areas.
Patient care areas such as pre-op, where patients are prepped for surgery. It's where Andrew DiPiano and Drew Mangano interact with patients and doctors. They say it gives them a head start on a career.
In here we learn medical terminology and all that kind of stuff, and really more in depth, so it'll help me when I get to college be ahead of everybody else.
This is not the same girl.
Yeah, this is the same person.
Cecilia Miejas found her calling in the hospital's X-ray department, learning from the doctors who diagnose patients and from the technical nurses on staff. They're happy to give students the hands-on experience.
I get them to see ultrasound scans and bone densitometry, mammography, and normal radiographic studies like kidney X-rays.
It's exposure to career opportunities these students feel privileged to take part in and challenged to keep up with.
I just find that every day there's something different. There's always something new to see. There's always something different to learn, and I just think it's so great, just for that fact.
And she has already decided that she wants to work in X-ray. In addition to the clinical time students have on the floor, they also have classroom time at the hospital as well. This is the first year for the program, and already it's a big success. All of the students had to qualify for it with high grades, so you can imagine already at this point how many juniors are already getting ready for next year's program, trying to get into it. It's very, very popular. And 5 schools in the area participate, and only 15 students can go, so very competitive.
No doubt about it. It's kind of neat, like a Doogie Howserville.
Yeah, and they get to do things. So they actually get to, you know, take part in some of the things going on at the hospital instead of just watching all the time.
Hands-on. That's great. Thanks, Rob.
This program is a good example of what good things can happen when we have people working together. The biology teachers at our home schools work with our staff at the school, and we're able to implement this program. It's been a really good success, and the community hospital has been a superb partner in this whole process. What I'd like to do at this point is to talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening at the school.
Technology in action.
Oh, yeah. With the building project, we've added 45,000 square feet to our facility. We've renovated our existing mechanical systems. We've renovated our culinary arts lab, and we also installed 3 biotech labs. We are right now in the process of concluding the building project, and as it stands right now, this is the financial status of our project. The district's paid for the project in cash up front. They paid approximately $6 million, and basically, with the interest, we're looking at right now a balance of about $480,000 that we'll be refunding to the districts within the next month or so. And what's really unique is the fact that with the reimbursement, we originally anticipated our reimbursement would be at about 20% of the actual project cost. Now, since we've gone through PlanCon and we know what the reimbursement will be, it'll amount to about 34 to 35% at approximately $1.7 million. So North Penn would be getting, I can't recall exactly, just about half of what that is. The reimbursement in terms of the $1.7 million would occur sometime after July. Let's talk about some of the results. We've been tracking what's happening to our students. And what's interesting is when you start looking at what is happening, you can see there's a trend for more and more of our students to go into post-secondary education. If you look at where the jobs are in the coming years, those jobs require additional training beyond high school. For example, an automobile mechanic. To get a job in a new car dealership, that student has to be able to go and get the associate's degree through the community college. We now have kids that are prepared to do that. They're taking the right academic courses, and we're seeing this past year we had in excess of 40% of our seniors continue their education beyond high school. What's really unique with a lot of these students are their education is being paid for by their employers. If we track the students in terms of job placement, our school is really fortunate. We're well blessed. We're located in a highly industrialized area that is extremely skill-starved, if you know what I'm saying. Our kids have excellent opportunities of finding employment. This 98% basically takes into account the students that continue their education, students that go in the military, or students that find employment. This shows that very few of our kids do not do something with their lives after they graduate from our school. Another thing that's happening is we're seeing an increase in our enrollment. We're looking, right now we have 1,050 students with about 112 full-time students, basically in youth apprenticeship programs, working with local companies. Next year we're anticipating at least 1,200 students. We've had estimates as high as 1,300 students with about 150 full-time students in work-based learning programs. The students who are coming to our school for youth apprenticeship programs are taking their academics in our building. And what's kind of interesting is we don't take a very traditional approach to the way we deliver academics for these kids. For the most part, these students have average to above average intellect, and for the most part, a lot of these kids have never really seen a purpose to academics. Now they have employers that are telling them, you need these basic skills to succeed in the workplace. And then on top of that, when these students are taking the academics are being taught in the context of their career interest. Our kids last year scored 1220, a composite math score of 1220. Those are for 11th grade students. They're presently seniors. What's interesting is the statewide average in math for kids at the same age level in vocational education was 1120. That's really a credit to our kids and also the staff for a good job that they're doing. So that's a good indicator that our academic program is working for these kids. I want to just say on behalf of our school that we really appreciate the support from North Penn, from the administrative staff down to the boards. We're really fortunate in our building that we've had a lot of support from our home schools. Thank you very much.
Any questions from the board before Dr. Irwin?
Just a comment, Madam President, if I may.
Sure.
Dr. Irwin's always complimenting everyone else, but in working with him for over 3 years, I guess now, I would like to compliment him because leadership begins at the top. And he's one of the finest leaders I've ever seen. He really gets the most out of his people, out of the students over there, out of the money that we send him. It's just a pleasure to work with people like you, and I thank you for
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mosey. By the way, Mr. Mosey, Mr. Schilling, Mr. Allen before him, and myself have worked on the BOTEC board. It's a joint operating committee. There's 5 school districts and a total, I believe, of 11 board members on that JOC board. And it's probably one of the nicest boards to work on. The level of cooperation and the competence that comes from the staff is remarkable. And it's a pleasure to serve there.
You go in the kitchen.
Oh, you in the kitchen? Don says there's a wonderful kitchen there. He goes every Christmas for his Christmas cookies.
No cookies this year.
No cookies this year. It's your fault.
No, that's a complaint.
Because you got caught stealing. Okay, elementary redistricting. Dr. Haslett.
I'll turn it right over to Dr. Venema, who will review the delegation, who will review what's been done to date and also try to explain some new figures and numbers that the committee has come up with. Dr. Venema?
Thank you. Reviewing everything we've done to date would take forever, so I'll skip part of that, but just remind folks that a committee began working in September, made a presentation of a recommendation or proposal to the board in December. We've held public input sessions to hear the concerns that the public has expressed over the plan that was initially proposed. We've had several different opportunities for public input, both in front of the full board and through our public input sessions. We were all prepared to bring forward a motion for the board to consider and vote on last month, but there were some things that caused us to delay that vote and bring it forward for additional discussion. Since the last meeting, we've had a couple different committee meetings to talk about some variations, and the variations evolved or emerged because some changes existed in the possibility of the use of modulars at Gwen-Norr. As with any kind of boundary study, once you change some of the parameters in the study itself, it can have an impact. So we felt it was prudent to take it back to the committee, see what the impact of this modular situation would have, and then bring forth some variations. And that's pretty much what the committee has done. In your packet this evening, you'll see the topics of discussion that we have planned. What my intent is to do is to explain the different modulars and then begin the conversation with the board regarding the status of the Gwen-Norr modulars and then the 3 options. And I'll talk about each of those options so that people are clear as to what they represent. First of all, the modular status, there needs to be decision made regarding the status of 2 temporary modulars that were placed at Gwen-Norr to alleviate the crowded conditions that were anticipated until the NAP addition was completed. That discussion is what we'll start the evening with, but I'd like to take the time at this point to go over the three options and then turn it back to the board for discussion. As I said in your packet, there are three options, each labeled at the top left-hand corner. Option A is the original proposal of the committee that was brought to the board in December and has had some slight updates made to it. And those updates include some changes in the number of housing starts, which we just were made aware of within the past week, as a matter of fact. The number of units in the Montgomery Crossing development down south of Keenest Road in Montgomery Township. The number of units that we were told originally is different from the actual number of units that can be built there, and that's going to have an impact of about 20 students potentially, according to our calculations. The second minor impact was a decision or a recommendation at the last board meeting to eliminate a small segment of the Gwynn-Nor sending area that is slated to go to Gwinnett Square that involves about 5 students. So the impact of that small triangle of the district and these housing starts is shown in the option A, which is the board's original, or the committee's original proposal. So that pretty much reflects, if those of you who've been following this closely, what the original option was. Option B is a slight variation of option A, and that variation includes a significant segment of the population remaining intact and remaining in the original school. And that has to do with the bridle path segment, which is a section in the original map, in the original proposal, slated to move to NAP. What this option shows is the circumstances that would exist if that particular population involves approximately 38 students were to remain at bridle path. The Cambridge Knoll development, which is yet to be built, although is moving around very rapidly, would be scheduled to move to NAP under this scenario. And since we show actual students as well as projected students from housing developments, it's important to mention that. So that's what option D represents. Option C is something new to most people. And if you refer to page 3 in the packet, you'll see that there is a description at the top of what this alternative represents. Now, this is an alternative that grew from committee discussion. In fact, one of our committee members, or a couple of our committee members, suggested that we look at this in light of some of the changes, particularly the modular circumstance and also the impact of some of our housing start changes. And so we brought this option forward for the board to consider. This includes several key points, and there is a map attached that is an attempt to show what this new drawing would, or this new boundary line would represent. I apologize for one thing on the map, and you'll see on this map there's a line, the dark line at the very bottom is the one that represents the new line. If you have a blue map, or if you have this one, there is a medium gray line that was the original boundary, and we have drawn a second dark line at the bottom that represents the proposed new, or the line that would represent the new boundary in option C. Now, that's the part that includes Montgomery Square and goes along DeKalb Pike over to, what is that, Horsham Road. Now you'll see a very dark line that runs through the middle here. That's a little bit confusing. That represents part of the middle school boundary and is not impacted here in any way the sending areas for the elementary schools. So the difference is really the bottom dark line that shows the development below 202 is removed from the area that would go to NAP. In other words, that area would remain at Gwynn-Nor, and it incorporates a development. The development is not marked on here, but if you care to, you might want to write down that there is 147 units scheduled for development in that area that looks like it says Montgomery Square.
What's the name of the development?
The name of that development, Art, is that Montgomery Terrace? Is that 147? Terraces of Montgomery? Okay.
We call it the golf course.
We call it the golf course section, or garden golf. You know where that is. This, if you again look at the bullets at the top of the page in option C, the Gwinnett Point development would continue to attend NAP, and that represents approximately 41 students. The Gwynmont Farms development, that's the development, the established development below 202, would remain at Gwynn Nor, approximately 38 students. The garden golf, or what do we call it? Terrace Montgomery would go to NAP, and of course at this point there are no students there, but there are approximately 147 units, and according to our formula that would translate into roughly 45 students that would emerge from that development. In this scenario, the Bridle Path segment will remain at Bridle Path, as we talked about in option B. The Church Road, Wissahickon Avenue segment, that's the small segment, the largest segment that would go to Gwinnett Square. And finally, the students from Cambridge Knoll, which is again an area with no houses in it at the moment, but that would be slated to continue to go to NAP. Now, one of the things that we looked at, among several things in making judgments and decisions about what might work and what might not work, was the relationship between capacity, which you'll see listed after each school, and the total number of students that would emerge from the different developments over this 5-year period. One of our important attempts was to keep that number away from the capacity so that there was room for or cushion for some growth, but there were several other considerations as well, including a number of things related to proximity to the school, to the ease of transportation, to the best fit in our minds relative to geographical location. These factors were all considered together in coming up with the various plans that you see in front of you. I think it's important to note that the committee had a lot of debate and discussion about the options or the packet that you see in front of you. In talking with them just recently, I think my sense from them was, although it wasn't unanimous, but it was a consensus that they still supported the first or original option, and primarily supported it because of concern about the bridle path, the tightness of enrollment that will exist there. Option B was one that was discussed as a variation from primarily from public input and discussion that occurred as long ago as a month. And option C is one that also received some favor on the committee, and because of some recently discovered changes in housing units, appears as though it might do a better job than even we originally intended. So we present these three options for the board to discuss. The committee will support, obviously, the plan that the board puts together, and we'll do our best to make things work no matter what it is. At this point, I think it's important that we talk to some degree about the modular situation at Gwynn Nor, and then lead into discussions on the options.
An update on the modular system, the modular classrooms that currently exist. The last time that we were here, I had relayed to the board and also to the audience that the two modulars, temporary modulars that are there, were allowed to stay. At the time, that in fact was true, and to some extent remains true today, with the exception, in talking to Len Perrone and with further clarification from their commissioners, those two temporary modulars have to be made permanent. Now, they say, as they say they simply need an adjoining hallway with hot and cold running water. But in talking with Art Wood and other members of the board, that's not the way we make permanent modular space. Art Wood has put together costs related to making those permanent. That's an option. It's an option that's been kicked around. It has somewhat died in some areas of discussion among various board members, and a lot of that has to do with whether or not they're needed as opposed to wanted. Anyway, at the time that I had checked into the keeping of those modulars, it is because we have, through programming, changed over the years. Never before did we wish to have a room specifically for technology. The focus was a room for music and a room for art, and the school districts and parent groups have done everything they can to try in their schools to keep an art room and a music room. More and more, there's an outcry and a desire on the part of board members and parents and administrators and teachers for tech rooms where equipment can be kept in one section and a classroom or a lab can be held. Those modulars are perfect for that. They have the most flexibility, and reaching installation because of existing conduit in these modulars makes that an easy thing to do. I have always felt that that space would be used, whether it be for technology or pull-out specials. As the discussion continues on the board level about those modulars and about these three plans, I am going to add in at another point in this discussion an obvious glaring issue, and that is the issue of the overwhelming and exploding population of ESL students. And it really hit home for me, and hopefully the other board members that were there, that Gwen Nor has 40 ESL kids that are pulled out for the purpose of providing them with instruction in the English language. They are in conditions that I believe are not right. There's also talk among administration and among core teachers. We have Lana Donaher and Mrs. Jerrickson Rhodes looking at providing the board very soon a recommendation for a comprehensive program for these students. They're getting a half an hour or so a week, and it's not enough. And not only are they struggling, but they are waiting the classes that our children are in, because everything has to, the teacher is doing all they can do to bring a full class along. There's no question about it that the ESL students, one, much less a couple, weight down the classroom. Anyway, I'm going to start board discussion around on everything here tonight. And I'm not going to let that ESL matter go too far either.
I don't want to start the discussion, but I just want a clarification.
Sure.
Is these numbers based upon the modules at Gwen Nor being there or not being there?
Donald?
The capacity you see at Gwen Nor is 625, and you'll see that on all three options. That reflects the modulars not being there. Okay? If the modulars were there, we're looking at approximately 675 as a capacity. But then that taxes the core facility, so that's a different issue.
The situation with the modulars, I do want to ask Art Wood at this point. There is a cost attached, a steep cost attached to making them permanent and keeping them for good. That cost needs to be valued among each board member in light of the monies already spent at NAP. But we have current permission to make them permanent at Gwen Nor. Art, do you believe that we can seek or get from Upper Gwinnett a commitment that we may, same footprint, once the temporaries are moved, that same footprint be allowed for a use later down the road if we choose to put two permanents there?
I do.
That it can be grandfathered?
Can be grandfathered.
And we can get that in writing. So my fear is we let the trailers go and we don't make them permanent now, use it or lose it. That's what I'm afraid of. You believe that we can be given that back at some point in time if Gwen Nor needed it?
I believe we can, just from conversations that I've had.
All right, board's discussions to the right.
What's the cost to make them permanent, Art?
Approximately $225,000. We would add to the end of the existing 6 modulars, 2 permanent modulars, and extend the corridor just a short distance and not change our gang lavatories and other facilities that we have there. They would be adequate for 8 modular classrooms.
That's just making those that you have there permanent? I'm sorry.
No, that's bringing in 2
That's what I'm
new modular classrooms similar to the ones that we already have there and at our other buildings. That's a 24 by 36 classroom connected to a permanent corridor with all the necessary amenities as it relates to life safety code and exits at the end and so forth.
Okay, thank you. That would bring up about, like you said, cost total, including the modular.
Total cost would be approximately $225,000. Total cost would be $225,000. We figured each time that we do modulars, when we talk about doing 4 modulars or 6 modulars, we usually use a number of $100,000 per unit. And of course, the corridor is also a modular too, so we'd be doing 2 classrooms and the corridor, and we estimate that that will be $225,000 total for the whole project.
So in other words, that's to make those 2, because you have to add the other, you have to bring some in to make corridor, is that what you're saying?
But it's to bring in 4 new halves that would go together to make 2 holes with a corridor.
Okay.
I mean, it's our standard of modulars that we have throughout the district.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mrs. Sharp?
Art, we just put the temporaries in this past September. I thought they were sold, or they plan to be sold? Or is there a designated?
The modulars we have now are never sold. The one that we have, for an example, is the one that we leased a number of years ago that was at Montgomery Elementary. But there is a neighboring school district that possibly will need 2 modulars and will be coming to visit those, so they too can lease them. I mean, the practical thing to do on a 1-year basis, we're leasing the one for $425 and the other for $500 a month. So you're really leasing for $925 a month. And that's the prudent thing to do if you're going to use them a year or 2.
Well, we did just put them in, and quite frankly, everything I'm hearing regarding keeping Gwyn Nor's enrollment up to the approximately 600 student level runs totally contrary to everything that was stated regarding Gwyn Nor's core facility capacity and the practicality of maintaining such a level of enrollment when we first discussed the various options prior to approving NAP. At that time, there was a $1.8 million plan that would have had 2 modulars to NAP with upgrades perhaps from remaining money to Gwyn Nor. There was a kinder center proposal. There was certainly those who wanted a 14th elementary school. And contrary to what's being said now, we did not tell this community that we were investing $3.1 million in the NAP project because we thought we'd need it for housing starts later. We said we needed it for immediate relief, and that is printed throughout the Act 34 hearing official document that justified to the state this project. We list in there for the FTE, the full-time equivalent capacity of Gwyn Nor 475. I believe that we have some compelling reasons to be putting accurate numbers inside that official document that we as a board have to take a vote and sign off on as having credibility. We can, you know, just as any house, if you can get it through zoning, you can add 10 more bedrooms onto a house, but don't you need a few more bathrooms?
Let me just make one correction in that process. In any Act 34 hearing, you did not reflect modular classrooms.
No.
And that's why you had in the Act 34 hearing for Gwyn Nor a 425 student capacity.
Well, it's 475, Art, but that is what the building itself was built for. And when the building was designed, when we're talking the cafeteria, when we're talking the gym, when we're talking the core facilities that aren't going to be increased through the modulars, the building was made for 475. I will say that I have had to do a lot of work again since option C because, quite frankly, I would love to be able to say option C works. Politically, there's no downside. When you move less students, you upset less parents. But when we're going to rely on housing starts for NAP, we really couldn't get the politics of the board to yield to the numbers, so we will reconcile the numbers to yield to the politics of the board. And by removing students and then saying we're making a good exchange through 47 townhouses that are not beginning to come online until later this year. I have heard 10 to 20 townhouses is their expected goal by January 1. There's 2 or 3 more students for you to pick up down there. All right, they're going to come in dribs and drabs. Cambridge Knoll is the one single home development that's being redistricted to over to NAP out of B and C. Basically your only single home. Well, I'm sorry, B has Gwynmont there. What we will get out of them, they expect 20 to be online. That's what they told me by the end of the year. So there we have another 6 or 7 students if we use the 3.1 and if they're on track. I would love to be able to go with C, but it just betrays everything we've said for the last 2 years. And I need to know what of all the guidelines that were established in September are being upheld by each of these plans. Will class sizes remain consistent?
Answer that for get it over with.
Yes, yeah, we're comfortable with class sizes as we look through all of them. You're always going to have some situation, no matter what plan you come up with, that could result in class sizes being larger in a given grade based on factors we don't know, but we're comfortable with that class size picture.
Maintain our art and music rooms at each of our schools?
Yes, except for Bridle Path. We know in option B and C, the plan would require that we use, I think, an existing music room or art room for regular instruction. Of course, the intent of the Bridle Path segment remaining at Bridle Path was really just to take a look at the numbers and delay a decision which ultimately could bring that group of students to NAP. So that's a component of this that I didn't mention earlier.
And I would say that as I went through these developments and spoke to the builder's office and et cetera, I think that we'll be lucky if there are 15 or 20 of students coming out of them, and that would be a very aggressive building schedule for 2,000 at NAP. Meanwhile, Gwynnor does have a number of developments knocking on their door, and that enrollment of 597 is going to create a very tight situation in the scheduling, from everything from lunches to what we've read in the paper as far as library space and et cetera. And when I saw this plan, I wondered, how did we go to this given how much we've heard about the Gwynnor enrollment relief needs? And Dr. Venema, I've been told by several that they first met last Tuesday from our last board meeting, and that this plan was packaged and presented to them for discussion.
Well, first of all, it was brought up by 2 people on the committee who brought it to me and asked me.
Separate and apart from the group?
No, 2 members of the committee that came to me and said, what if we considered this for option C? I said, well, I don't know. I have to work the numbers, and I'll be able to share that with you at our next meeting, which I did the last time that we met. Really, it was an alternative that was suggested by the committee that I pulled the numbers together for. Subsequently, we found out about this glitch in the housing start numbers that we were getting from certain developers. And we put the numbers together and looked at them. As I said earlier, the committee, the consensus of the committee supports the original recommendation, but once they saw the numbers on option C, certainly feel more comfortable with that. The other part of reaction of the committee was the feeling of the principal at Bridle Path that for 1 year they could certainly handle the population at Bridle Path. And again, that was a concern all along of the committee, but the feeling that for 1 year, until we actually see the numbers of students that come in the bridle path segment that's in question, that we could delay the decision about that particular population for that period of a year.
Is that what the shelf life?
They were comfortable with that
What
in
is the
general.
shelf life of option C? 1 year? If for bridle path, and perhaps,
The bridle path component, as we've said all along, reduces the shelf life. We originally felt in option A that the shelf life could be as long as 5 years.
on A,
We have a concern when we have a school at this number, but the way it was presented to me regarding bridle path is this is a 1 year thing to see if the numbers that we're projecting are real. And then if they are, the option for the board to consider next year pulling that segment into NAP. And really that's what it was based on, and that's what was presented to me.
so is there a shelf life attached? Have you evaluated at all for a shelf life on C? Or are we abandoning that objective
Well,
to
I
avoid
mean, shelf
redistricting?
life was, we wanted it
5
to
years.
last 5 years. That was our original hope. The bridle path segment, if that holds true to the numbers that we're projecting, then the hope of the committee and the discussion I had with other board members was that this would be discussed again next year and we would make a decision. The question, of course, is are our projections real? Until we see the real numbers that show up in that bridle path population, I think that was the intent of doing the delay there.
Did you
So
feel
shelf life, if it would stay like this and the numbers stayed the way they are, I'm not comfortable with the shelf life as it looks here. But the bridle path discussion was about doing it for 1 year. And
Bridle
so that's
path-
what's
for bridle
tolerable.
path.
For bridle path.
Okay, you're, let's
bridle
not
path.
damn all of option C based
No.
on the situation with bridle path.
The rest
Meanwhile,
of-
the bridle path situation has had at least 5 votes all along to be kept where it's at. That's always been there. That could be, there are at least 5 or more votes for that. For one main reason. They don't want to go. Their school doesn't want them to go. Their principal feels it can work. It has caused 0 problems. What is, quote, overcrowding by 4, then by 2, then by 1, and through this, they're not complaining. They know that it's going to be year at a time as we see actual numbers. But, when you don't have a war and when you don't have other parents saying get rid of them, kind of makes a decision real easy.
with Gwynmoor, Don,
Yes.
do you believe then that having 600 students in Gwynmoor for a 4, 5, 6 year period, however long those numbers, I mean, let's face it, even you're not changing much. You're still talking over the core facility capacities by whether it's 125 or 150 students,
Yeah,
is perfectly fine.
Based on the numbers that we see there, again, depending on the status of the modulars, that's the ingredient here. With a capacity of 625, we're looking at a high population of 601, according to our numbers, then that's tolerable, certainly. And that would fit into our thoughts about a 5-year shelf life.
Okay. Well,
the 675, that's the outside number if the modulars remain.
But
So-
quite frankly, if we only needed to draw Gwynmoor down to 597, 600 students, we could have moved 80 out to Gwinnett Square, where there's 100 under capacity, and we didn't need to invest $3 million in NAP to move 41. And that's where we were. The dialogue right now is so totally different than what I've heard from the time we introduced the NAP project to the hearing that we held and justified the project, through to just last September when we said that it was assigned for the committee to draw down the enrollment of Bridle Path and Gwen sending areas. If we only needed to move 80 students, why not one demographic area? You have 41 students going off to NAP, another 41 approximately going off to Gwinnett Square. Two small groups of students, graduating classes of 5 students out of 150 will be coming back to Pembroke and having the double whammy of splitting a second time. If that's all we needed to do, why not one geographic area then? If we're going to completely take away the parameters that you started with as a committee, then maybe we needed to look at it with a whole different perspective.
I don't feel that we've taken the parameters away, but obviously the other piece of this, you know, the reality is maybe ultimately we might only move 80 or 100 students in the whole picture. Certainly that was one of our factors, but the housing starts component is something that I'm sure very few people knew about or hadn't been studied in depth last year. And so introducing that has a whole impact on all of the options that we consider.
Well, I'm seriously concerned that if we go forward with this and we compromise what our original objectives are for the project, we will be back here after November, and we will be either looking at a new redistricting or we're going to be looking at another $3 million project to upgrade Gwynn North for the capacity that it's being required to hold.
I think you may be gaining the impression that I am here supporting Alternative C. I'm not. I'm just presenting the three for the board to discuss and make some decisions.
Well, I'd like some assurances on record that...
Well, Vicki, this is not based on what's going to happen next year. This is based on a managed growth plan we've been on for a long time, starting with the second high school, starting with the middle schools, the second high school situation, which will be handled and up in September, and now this is the last piece, elementary. We have all these housing starts that have already been explained, so if you're trying to make the implication that building onto NAP was a waste, you're crazy.
Madam President, I'm saying that we are not doing what we set out to accomplish or what we said was the justification.
Well, that's pretty disingenuous, giving your position on the second high school.
What does the second high school have to do with this?
Because numbers and conditions changed as the situation here has changed.
I don't understand the connection to the second high school. The conditions, I had a position that I held all the way throughout. I'm talking about what we said when we were selling the community, those who don't have children in the schools, as to why that project was needed, and it was needed, as it states here, for immediate relief, and we weren't talking sending 41 students.
Okay, there is still a huge contingency of children that have not been addressed yet. There's like 400 students at the elementary level in ESL that are in hallways. Okay, there is a piece still coming. You are acting like that space is going to be wasted, and that's nuts.
If ESL is a plan, I would like to know now, because if we're talking about segregating ESL into an all-day program at NAP and taking away their mainstreaming curriculum for the sake of filling a school rather than redistricting according to geography, I'd like to know now.
You are politically twisting things around in your little mind to accommodate yourself. The
anything
bottom line
is
is there is space here, and it's going to be used for students, whether they're minorities, whether they're gifted, whether they're whoever. The space is here. It's going to be used. That investment has been a good one, and we have a totally, completely managed growth plan from K through 12.
Madam President, I'm asking about the ESL because a major aspect of their program and their major need is to have greater exposure to English. That's why they're mainstream. That's why they're on a resource program. If they become isolated into a multilingual program, you've got 20 children who can't understand each other with no common language being taught.
Okay,
I mean, I need to
we've
know
got to get to
what
the
we
other board members.
You said that this is a part that I'm missing. I can't understand
Well, why don't you wait for
something.
real professionals to bring that information to the board? Okay? That will be forthcoming, their recommendations. But I think first and foremost, we should get them out of the hallways. They're not second-class citizens because they're minorities.
Absolutely not. And if we can relieve Gwynn North, they could have a resource room.
Mr. Allen.
What?
Man.
Good for you.
She wanted to thank you.
I guess it seems, if I understand you correctly, that 5 board members are in favor of option C.
No, what I'm saying is that bridle path piece.
Well, that's only an option C.
Okay.
B and C. It's C and B.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry.
Just listening, it seems to me that, so I'm going to move on with my next question about with any of these
Bill,
options?
I'm not sure there is 5 for C,
Okay.
the total package. I know the one bridle path piece has support. Matter of fact, I don't count a majority yet for any one of these, okay?
All right. But I don't think anybody's gonna do B. Anyway.
Okay, go ahead.
Has any consideration or study done as to how many children will move from their current school to a new school, and then when they go to middle school, back with the other kids from whence they came?
Yes.
We pretty much came to a conclusion as a committee anyway, that we would delay a decision on middle school until next year or subsequent years. The number of students impacted by this change would be just that new segment that is now being retained at Gwynn-Nor would remain a bridle path. But I was under the impression from recent discussions that we were not going to do anything with middle school this year at this time. There are some variabilities that we can look at down the road, but of course our urgency was to get an elementary decision. But it will have an impact on middle school one way or the other, depending on what we do with the lines in this decision.
Okay, now if I understand the conversation you had, that you and Vicki were having, as part of one of these proposals, the building of a second high school?
Nothing to do with it.
No, I think that was pretty well killed.
Yeah.
No, I'm just talking about how people's positions change from supporting nothing to supporting administrative committees.
Okay. If I'm reading this correctly, option C has one development moving to Knapp out of Gwynn-Nor, is that correct? Just one little sending area?
There's one, the sending area with 83 units, which is in the, what we've been calling the bridle path segment. That segment, that development is scheduled to move to Knapp. I know it's not developed yet.
No.
You said, did you say an undeveloped area?
No, I said one development.
Okay, one development, yes. That's correct.
That's the Bell Run Road?
Yes, that's the,
Straight to Knapp?
that's the Gwinnett Point development.
Okay.
Would go to Knapp.
Okay. And when those students go to middle school, will they go with Knapp children or Gwynn-Nor children?
Well, that's to be decided.
Today.
At this point, with the middle school lines drawn as they are, they would continue to go to Bridle Path. Or they would go to Bridle, or, excuse me, they would go to Pembroke. This confuses me too, folks. You need to understand that.
So there's no change in their middle school?
Not right.
Based on,
correct.
So they will go to Knapp, and where do the Knapp children go?
They go to Penndale.
Okay, so they'll have 1 year with students and then back.
As it stands at the moment,
Yeah.
unless we revisit that question next year.
That's the same thing as
Okay.
Gwynn Square.
And the crowding that we have at Bridle Path, have we asked all the parents there what they think, or just those that don't want to move?
Well, I've talked to the principal, who indicated to me that she could certainly handle the population for a year, but the reality of that is that they would need to use an additional classroom, an art or a music room, as a regular instructional space, which means that that particular discipline would be taught by that teacher going into one of the classrooms on a cart. But that's the option she said that she could tolerate for a year until we see the reality of the numbers.
And if the numbers prove to be crowded, we intend to do what?
Well, I would bring that back to the board for a discussion about moving that segment as the committee originally intended to Knapp the following year.
And if they don't want to move next year, then what do we do?
Different parents too.
I don't know.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay, Don, I have a question. The Gwinnett Point folks, there's 41 of them. Is there any other yet-to-be-developed community that is on line to come into Gwenmore?
There are developments down below Hartman Road. There's a development between between Welsh Road and Bethlehem Pike off Stump Road. And of course, there is a development in the Gwinnett Point that is to go up too, which is townhouses. The one in Montgomery Square.
Any of those in and about the number of 41 students anticipated?
No, not that many.
What are the numbers?
Well, in the developments off Stump Road, there's 49 units scheduled.
Okay.
And that translates in, they're single, I believe they're single homes, aren't they, Art? And in the development down off Hartman Road, they're single units, and there are 80 lots there. But
and anticipated students from there, and how many?
80 would yield about 25, maybe.
Over 3 years?
Okay.
Over 3 years, or over, until the development is completed, ultimately.
Okay.
And the 49 would yield, what, about 20.
Okay. On those two
Less
developments?
than 20, 16.
Those two developments?
15. Yes.
I guess.
Those are already part of developments that are being sent to Glenmore. Those are not isolated.
Are these kids aren't here yet?
Some of them are intermingling with other houses that are already being sent. So just be clear on what part of that map you're looking at. That's all I have to say, because it's
Those
very
students are
confusing.
slated and calculated in the population of Glenmore at this point.
But these kids are not here yet, correct?
But their neighbors are.
But their neighbors are.
It's a 241 house development.
Okay.
Of which 80 remain to be constructed. Not necessarily sold, constructed.
Okay, I know we don't want to split neighborhoods, but I think when we separated Gwenmont from Gwinnett Point, we separated neighborhoods. I mean, there's...
202 divides them.
Well, I guess my fundamental block is we are moving kids that are in a school, loyal to their school, consider themselves Gators for kids that are not here yet. I don't know why we cannot creatively design this so that the kids that are coming in are bused to the new school. They have no vested interest. Anyway, I just can't get past that. That's all. Mr. Hill?
I guess the only question I have, listening to all the dialogue, and I've been hearing this for weeks, is that one of the reasons we did the upgrade at Knapp was originally, because originally we were not talking about putting classrooms in there, we were just talking about upgrading the core facility and putting modulars at Knapp. That was the original thought. Is Gwynnor and Bridle Path, or in fact, even Gwinnett Square, are those core facilities of the size and capability to handle the students, the numbers we're showing here, and see they are?
If you look at Walton, Bridle, and Gwinnett Square, you see core facilities that could really handle more students than we have capacity rating for. I mean, go into the IMC. To give you a perfect example, the IMC at Gwynnor is 1,364 square feet. The new addition, or the new IMC at Knapp, is 2,694 square feet, double the size. If you go to Bridle, Walton, even at Nash, which is a duplicate of Gwynnor, same architect, same footprint, one in 66 and one in 64 and one in 74, they enlarged the IMC. So, you know, the Knapp problem, and we talked about it long and hard here and in committees and so forth, we have a woefully small multipurpose room. I mean, it's 3 classrooms. We're going to put 2 classrooms in a corridor in. I mean, that gives you the idea how big it was, with a very low ceiling. The cafeteria, we have a kitchen there that could serve 1,000 kids, and a cafeteria that can just barely manage the number of kids we have there now. We're expanding that cafeteria.
So Knapp was the only one, we had the problem, because that was originally, one of the prime reasons we started that construction at Knapp was because of the core facilities.
One of them was to address core.
Well, we addressed the core facility, and we addressed a couple of things. I mean, mechanical systems. We were half steam and half hot water heat.
Well,
I mean, it goes on.
All I'm trying to get at is I think you've answered my question, but in summary, what you're telling me, these other schools are not in the shape that Knapp was, and they can handle these enrollments without any major construction changes. That's all I have.
Mr. Shapinsky.
You started the conversation with asking us about the modulars, and I'll talk about that first, because right now we have 3 options in front of us, and none of them have anything to do with keeping modulars anymore. We know that there's an additional cost to even considering it now, which makes it pretty much prohibitive. I don't think there's too many people who want to support that. When you assigned me to the committee, and I went to the committee before I was assigned there to voice some concerns I had about their numbers, I was fortunate enough to find out that there had been a lot of bad things said about this committee, and that this committee was not what people claimed they were. The committee worked hard on a lot of different options. They examined a lot of things. The committee, unfortunately, was handicapped with something: inaccurate information. That didn't come out till this past week, at Thursday, when I questioned the administration about when the last time they updated the data they were using, and nobody said anything to me because it had never been updated. So Art and Don, to their credit, got in a car and went out to some of these building sites. Now you see 147 homes turn into 80. Also, it should be noted that the particular area that Mrs. Mengel was talking about with 40 homes off of Stump Road is not even in the development stage. Montgomery Township doesn't even know anything about it, so it's not going to show up tomorrow. And a lot of people thought that this thing was being built, that we were going to see them by September. It ain't going to happen, folks. Montgomery Township doesn't even know about it. It's not in zoning. It's not in the Planning Commission. It's not anywhere on the map except our map, okay? It is a potential, and we were wise to consider it as a potential. The committee did that, okay? The next stage, when I went to the second meeting for the redistricting committee, we went there to discuss the potential of updating these numbers, which hadn't been done yet. I went into that meeting in the redistricting committee. People were there, and somebody on the redistricting committee pulled out an option, option C. You see it in front of you. To their credit and courage, they came up with an alternative using the data the committee was using. And we see it tonight. It's amazing that the accusations levied against our redistricting committee and the volunteers that were put on this committee suffered through. People said they wouldn't come up with an alternative. People said they didn't listen to what parents had to say. Well, they did. They came back with an option, another option that works. When you compare some of the options, and I say some because option B really came out of nowhere. When I sat down at that meeting, I was practically stunned with option C being laid in front of me. Option B was put on the table too at the same time. No discussion with, I don't think, the committee came from that, because I don't remember option B being discussed at all, okay? But the administration laid it on there because they thought it was a proposal that had merit, and some people wanted to see it from the board. When the numbers were updated, the picture was very bright. We had realized that a lot of these homes were already built, that some of these kids were already in our system. So we didn't have the fear of them coming in the future. They were here now. The second stage was the committee was charged with a couple of things, and I heard it said December, I heard it said in January. We opted to choose the option we designed because we wanted to move the least amount of kids. Well, option C moves less kids, okay? So I was glad that the committee realized that there was a way to do it, even less. The second issue that came from this was, how can we utilize our facilities to the best way possible? The issue about NAP being not utilized to the maximum came up. Under option C, NAP is utilized. But we have one option in option C that we didn't have before. We still have the possibility, should it become necessary, to move Bridle Path, the segment from Bridle Path, we have the capability to do that without jeopardizing NAP. The difficulty I run into with option A, which was the original offering by the districting committee, under our 5-year shelf plan, within 3, NAP goes over capacity with this brand new renovation. Why would we want to support that? We went through the trouble to draw redistricting lines that in the 3rd year of the committee's proposal, we exceed capacity. Didn't sound too bright, but it was the way the math worked out. I can understand why it was proposed, because the other options at the time with the data they were using weren't any better. We now have a better option, which gives us more alternatives in the future. I think it'll extend this shelf life, and Vicki brought up the issue about shelf life. If the committee's numbers are wrong, the shelf life of this plan goes out the windows. If you believe the committee's numbers are wrong and the shelf life has been changed in any way, shape, or form, separate and above from Bridle Path, then why do you believe the committee's recommendation? It's their data. It's their numbers.
Excuse me?
Do you understand what I'm saying? Why would you think the shelf life of this plan has changed?
I asked about C. I didn't have a shelf life assigned to C, but one thing I do know, I personally checked the housing developments that are being sent to NAP in order to avoid sending students. And not one of them are expecting to have 1/3 of their townhouses online. Not one of them is near development either. So that's
our numbers reflect that in option C.
No.
We have built NAP for one purpose only, to face 400 to 500 new homes coming in the near future. The committee recommended that it would be over 5 years that most of these homes would be built.
But that
is still a fair assumption. The information is accurate. The new option affords us 2 alternatives we didn't have before. Space at NAP, more space than we need, and it's a better, more attractive plan because it moves less people. You know, the issue with Bridle Path, and that's a completely separate issue with a lot of us because of a lot of different reasons, but this plan leaves us the alternative that if we have to, and it becomes a need to move Bridle Path, and I think most of those people involved in the Bridle Path segment understand that once it becomes a need, it's going to happen. There's no alternative for this board anymore at that point. It now is a need, and you will go. We will watch the numbers because there's some serious concern with the numbers to the belief that over the next 5 years, because of 12 homes left in the Bridle Path sending area, we will have more kids than we have over the last 5 years with all the construction going on over there. It is ridiculous to believe that, okay? The committee honestly used a methodology in this particular case which at best, is speculative, okay? They know that. They have made no secret about it. They know that there's a lot of ifs in this formula for them. Option C gives us more space and a bigger safety net than we had before. It's a better alternative for us. It gives us the opportunity to see if Bridle Path's numbers come in the way the committee projected. Bonnie Rosen, the principal of Bridle Path, was on this committee. She came to the meeting. She was prepared to fight for keeping those students there. She believes that she can accommodate this situation. She also has serious concerns that the numbers are not exactly what she's going to think she's going to see, and she bases that on, I guess, the same belief that most of us do, that we watch the numbers over the last 3 years and watch them go down, not up. And that's district-wide, not just at Bridle Path. Option C affords us some things we didn't have before, obviously a choice. The plan is decent. It gives us some space. And I'll tell you, under option C, we have a NAP range for an alternative which goes anywhere from 17 kids up to 49. At Gwen Nor, we now have an option range from 27 kids to 65. That's without the modulars. We're not even discussing whether we're going to keep the modulars anymore. I don't think anybody here really wants to. I don't think anybody wants to incur the additional spending. I've talked to most of you. I really think that's a fair assessment. If anybody disagrees, please speak up.
No, just keeping the privilege to return to it later if we have to.
Option C offers an alternative we didn't have that now makes it more attractive. It doesn't solve all our problems, neither did the committee's recommendation. But if I have to choose between these options, you guys know where I'm going to go. Option C has the best plan for today, for tomorrow, and beyond. That's all I got to say.
I have a question for Vince.
Sure, Bill.
Vince, you talked about, I would say, revising the projections for growth.
Housing impacts.
Did I understand that?
Housing impacts.
However you did it, I don't want to get into, we can all argue pro and con of how to count, but it was a different method. Is that correct?
No. Art, they told us there was 147 homes on Hartman Road. They went out and counted,
different
turned it to
numbers.
80.
You used different numbers?
Yes.
Okay.
They counted them and it turned into 80.
Did you then go to option A and revise that based on?
Yes, he has in this
so
paper
both,
right here.
Both of them are based on the same
yes.
premises?
Yes.
Okay.
You see the updated version in this tan handout that you were sent.
Okay.
I asked them to update all the numbers so that we could see all the numbers.
All right. Yeah, they all reflect the 80-unit development as opposed to 146, so all three of them show that.
All right. That's all I had. Thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Mr. O'Donnell.
I only have a couple comments. I can't say it like Vince says it, but I have to agree with everything Vince says. I do want to commend the committee for coming up with option C. We move less kids. That's what I want to do. I want to move less kids. I don't want to spend $2.25 to make the modulars permanent if we don't need them. I don't think we do. But hopefully the bridle path people realize that we have to watch the numbers. Right now, option C says we don't move them. But if the numbers are like we think they are, we won't have to move them. But if they are, they're going to have to move next year. I just want everybody to realize that. But I happen to be for option C because it really moves less kids. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Donnell.
The only concerns that I have are the middle school, which you did not look at. I wish you would as part of it. Some of the calls that I've gotten, and I don't know, I haven't looked at a map during the phone call, but where they say that they'll split now and, okay, the kids will adjust and they'll go to this school, and then when it's time for the middle school, then they'll go back again. So they get split from the elementary school, and then a year or two later, when it's time to move on to the junior high, they get split again, and that I'm not comfortable with. And so I think we should look at the whole thing in one
we had several
project.
conversations about the middle schools, and I shared a couple different ways that we could go. I was under the impression that the board wanted to delay a decision regarding doing anything with middle schools until after we had made
I understand that, and I wasn't on the board where I put my 2 cents
No,
on that bin.
Mr. Pekowski, the night that you were appointed was the night we were at Penndale, was reorg. Those junior high numbers were shown on 3 different, under 3 different scenarios. I remember at that time the discussion among the board members was that under any of the scenarios, I believe it was Pembroke, worst case scenario would be over by 5 kids. And I remember saying, so what? This district's been moving the goalposts for years in terms of capacity. So I remember, and everyone looked at it and we just said, it got blown off, it would be handled later. Under any scenario.
Will it be handled by school, by elementary sending school? Where will the lines?
We have split sending areas now. We have split schools now.
Yeah, and I don't like that.
I agree with Terry completely.
I think
that's a fair assessment.
We have.
I don't like it. That's all. I have a concern about that. That's all.
We will be having 5 children out of whole grade level, 5 children out of Gwinnett Square graduating, and they will be leaving 100%, other than those 5, will be going on to Penndale while the other students will be going to Pembroke. It isn't about whether the numbers are over, it's what's best for the students, because I've been through that.
Right.
I was one of the small group where my son left Gwinnett Square to go to Penfield while the rest went to Pembroke. So they're basically being sent into the school and say, make new friends, but we're whispering under our breath, but don't get too close.
Well,
Because they're going to have to leave them all again. And I really think that bothered me the first time when we had our hearings, Terry. It haunts me that we're hitting them with a double whammy like that.
I have a suggestion that we can revisit that particular issue once there is an
With all
decision
plans,
made.
whichever.
Because truly, there is an issue with the students who move into an elementary school that would go to a different middle school, have their newly found friends go to that school, and they go back
That's
to the
a
other.
real-
That's an issue. Now, of course, that won't affect anyone until, it won't affect anyone next year, it'll affect kids the following year.
Right, but
So I
it's
think
still a
there's some
critical-
time, once we make a decision regarding the elementary boundaries, to take a look very carefully at this middle school situation and make some judgment calls.
Well, why don't we just decide not to do that?
Yeah.
Why don't, because under all those
Decide not
scenarios
to.
you gave us before, the worst case, there was 5 over at Pembroke. That's a so what?
Well,
Why
Actually,
can't we
it'll-
decide that that's simply not happen? That there, this alleged double whammy, that not happen?
they would then have to be grandfathered back into that scenario.
Okay, we
can do that.
don't move special ed kids more than, what is it? You can't move them
3 years.
You can't move
3
them
years.
every 3 years, and then we just don't do it. I mean, if it's a health, safety, and welfare, best interest of the child type of
I
thing,
think it
we don't
falls
do
in
it.
there.
Well, let me see what that, the impact on transportation and grandfathering students and so on, I have to look at that
What do
in
you-
more depth, so.
Well, transportation, in for a
I'll look
penny,
at
in for a
that.
pound, I mean, I can't foresee that being, the buses are on the road, and the middle school, at least Pembroke and Penndale are so close.
I'd want to see how many students are impacted and what it would mean for not just the 5th graders, but 4th graders and
Will
down
you,
the
will you
road.
run
So
that?
I'll look at that.
Will you
What
run
do-
those numbers for us?
Sure.
Are we talking about grandfathering
Mr.
elementary,
Mosey?
or are we assigning them to middle school?
Dr. Benham, I would just like to thank you and your committee. I personally think there were 5 votes at the last meeting to approve the NA, because I talked to several board members after the meeting. And I know that you've been hit with an awful lot of variations and changes and so forth, and I know that's very difficult. I would just like to, if I could, I tried to go through all the numbers, and I'll try to keep I had quite a few things I was going to say, but I don't think it's really going to be worth it, because I'm just concerned with the fact, and contrary to what Mr. Sierpinski said, I was on the facilities committee up until this year, and I was involved with the NAP project. The whole purpose of the NAP project, initially we were going to put modulars. When the RFP went out, and Mr. Delciato came back and said, I can give you 6 classrooms and upgraded core facilities for $2.45 million. That was when the board took a hard look and decided to make that a permanent improvement as opposed to modulars. It was also presented at that time because the letter dated November 1st, 1996 from Dr. Bose, where he lists various options. And one of the reasons was because at that time we had 43 classes district-wide that exceeded class size guidelines. We hired 11 aides to alleviate the problem, but he was concerned about next fall, and that's why the push was to upgrade NAP, to add those classrooms, and the hot spots identified at that time were Bridle Path and Gwen North. I went to Gwen North a few weeks ago. I don't know how you're going to take 2 modulars out of there, because based on the figures that you gave us at the December 7th meeting, the 10th day enrollment, you had a little star, and the little star says capacity at Gwen North is 625, includes the modular classrooms. Now, if you're taking the modular classrooms out of there,
It's 625 with permanent, 6 permanent modules.
What does this say? Capacity
625, 6 modules.
Right.
We now have 8.
Okay.
So it's with the 2
Oh, I
cars,
see.
625.
Okay, all right, so this was not,
I apologize.
We didn't count the 2 temps in there.
Yeah,
Okay.
Ongoing.
we worked
how many-
all along knowing that they were
Based
gone.
on what I see in option C, we're going to move right now, physically move 83 students to NAP. Is that correct?
41.
41 from Gwinnett Point,
The others on
and we're moving 42, oh no,
Gwinnett
40,
Square.
they're going to Gwinnett Square. So we're actually moving 41 students to NAP. That's all we're going to put in there next year.
Plus
we're
those,
adding
plus
6 new
those that come
classes.
from the housing development.
Pardon me?
Plus those that might come from the housing
But,
starts.
but they haven't, isn't Cambridge Knoll the one next to Lansdale Capital? They haven't started to build anything. They've broken ground, but haven't seen one building go up yet. How many are they going, they're not going to build 83 units in 1 year.
No, and that's why we show the housing starts
Okay,
impact
so 17 of them.
as a gradual thing as opposed to fully.
I mean, my concern is we spent $3 million to upgrade NAP. It was sold to this board by the administration that we needed to upgrade that facility to relieve stress from 2 schools. We voted to spend the money. We did that. And now we're looking for an alternative, and maybe now we're not going to put, fill those classrooms, or now, and then we're going to come back and say, now we may need more money to upgrade the core facilities at Gwen Nor to grandfather the children are there.
No, not the grandfather of the children there. Gwen Nor was built years ago for $450. That's one of our oldest schools. It's
Okay.
up there with, York Avenue.
So it's built for $450, right?
Okay, and
we have
now-
666 there now.
Okay.
So I don't see that as a coming situation. I see that as a situation that's already arrived.
Okay, and prudently, we should address their core facility situation like we have other schools.
Oh, so, but what are we doing with NAP? We upgraded the NAP, and that was to relieve some of the pressure from
We did
Glen North.
exactly. We dealt with the core facilities at NAP, and there's no doubt over these next 5 years that space will be filled in.
Yeah, but-
There's this push to have it all filled in by September.
That's
I
what
mean-
was told to us when we decided to spend the money to upgrade it, Donna.
Okay, but you're talking as
Vince was
if
at those meetings.
you're talking as if it's a waste of money. Do you feel these children won't fill
I'm not saying it's a waste of
building
money. I
over the
wanna
next 3 to
know-
5 years?
I want to know what happened to the plan that we spent $3 million of taxpayers' money to upgrade NAP to relieve the stress from Gwen Nor and from Bridle Path. Now the day has come. This is not new. This has been on the drawing board since early 1997. And now it's 99, so it's almost 2 years. We just didn't drop redistricting on the citizens of this community and the students. And like I've told people that have called me, nobody enjoys doing this. But I just have a problem with upgrading a building. We were told at the time that we were going to spend $3 million, that we needed this to relieve the stress at 2 schools. Okay, we voted for it, we spent the money, the project will be completed probably by this summer. And now the time has come, and all of a sudden now nobody wants to move, and I'm just concerned. We got 6 new classrooms over there. I want to know, someone tell me, we're only moving 41 students this year to NAP.
No.
Well, that's what I see. Tell me no.
You have housing impacts to consider.
41 more.
Vince?
You have other things. Let me ask you a question, and I'll put it in this
How
kind of
many
terms.
people,
because-
all right, even when the housing starts?
Well, let me ask you a
How
question.
many do you plan to be there?
What do you think is underutilization in that? 70 kids?
I think 6 empty classrooms is underutilization.
Well, no, answer me. Do you think 70 or 65 kids under capacity at NAP is a waste?
It has a declining
I
enrollment.
want Pat to answer the question.
Just these 2 here.
Do you think that's an underutilization?
I think that underutilization should not go beyond 10 or 15% of the capacity of a building.
You support an original
Okay.
proposal that after we remove the mods at Gwen Nor, the first year of your proposal underutilizes Gwen Nor by 65 students, and that's in the updated numbers. The old numbers, it was 70 students. At NAP, under the new numbers, in 3 years, we'll be 17 kids under capacity. The first year out, we will be under 80 kids.
All right, but what I'm saying to you is...
I don't understand what you're saying. You're saying we're
What
not
I'm
building
asking
something
you
for the
is,
future?
the building is going to be finished, and we're going to open this September,
Yes,
okay?
and we're ahead of the curve.
And we are going to...
For once, yeah, for once.
In a decade.
Don, how many empty classrooms are we going to have over there?
Considering we're hiring teachers, I hope we don't have any empty classes over there.
First of all, if
You're not going to have
NAP
650 kids.
If you look at the NAP
570
packet, you'll
Right.
see.
What option you want, C?
This is option C.
Right.
Under NAP at the top, you'll see 334 in parentheses.
Right.
That's the number of housing units that are scheduled to contribute to NAP's population.
Next
They
year?
are not.
Starting.
Those are the number of houses.
Right.
They will not.
We, the committee, came up with a formula of 0.31.
So you're figuring 35
So
kids.
we're ultimately looking at 104 kids
Right.
coming out of that 334, according to our formula.
In 3
Now,
years.
there are townhouses in there are single-unit homes in there, but that's our best estimate based on our calculations. Art and I made a rough estimate that we would anticipate getting as many as 35 students in the first year out of the 334 units, and that's 3 different developments.
Plus
That's
the
Gardner.
41 you're sending from Gwinnett Point.
Correct.
So you're looking at 76.
Right.
That's 3
78.
classrooms, roughly, 25 students.
Well,
Right
depending
at
on
that
how it
grade level.
divides out
Roughly.
across the grades, you'd have to
Roughly,
look at
yeah.
each.
Okay.
Ultimately, we'd look at each grade and determine exactly how many classrooms we'd use. We may not use
Right.
all 6 the first year, but again, that depends on how many housing starts we get.
Who said you were to use all 6 the
No
very
one.
first year?
No one. I'm just saying that answer.
I'm sure it'll have things to do with
Pat,
music, art,
I have no-
technology.
Patrick.
The only thing I would like to recommend is the fact that since there were subsequent meetings after the December 7th meeting, when option A was presented, I think that there ought to be subsequent meetings available to the public to discuss option B and C as well. Just to be clear. And that's all I have to say, Madam President. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, yes, Mrs. Bukowski.
How far can we push it out?
What do you mean?
He said he felt that we should have more discussions.
Well, tonight begins discussions.
One.
We have another action meeting
I'm
next Thursday.
saying, how far out can we push it out?
Well,
Is there a drop dead date?
Our hope was to have a decision in December. Then it was
December.
delayed to January. Now we're February. Now,
I know
this
we met.
affects our planning for
I
next
know.
year, obviously.
That's why I'm asking.
Our preparation, all
And
those kind of things.
and your budget.
I would certainly like the board to vote on and make a decision in February. That's my hope, but.
Okay, you answer.
Don, is it fair
Don-
to say the committee can hold a meeting for public input between now and the next board meeting?
On TV?
Sure.
Do you think the committee can do that and still have an opportunity for parents
I can ask
to
them.
speak? Can you let the board know if we can schedule that? Can we have that publicly advertised?
I'll certainly do my best to schedule something. That's gonna be, we're talking about a meeting that would have to take place between now and next
Thursday.
Wednesday, next Tuesday?
Thursday.
Well,
All right, yeah, by next Wednesday. Is it possible? Pat wants to have
two
extra public
possible days.
input.
There are
I'm
2
game.
possible days.
Next
I mean,
Wednesday.
3 days.
Next Wednesday, we have a meeting.
Can,
Finance.
Would you please
Well,
find
I
out
think
if
we
it
have
is
2
possible
days.
and give the public an opportunity to comment on option C? They have tonight, they can have next week possibly, and also next Thursday before any action's taken.
can I also
We could
ask,
I think we could do it as soon as Thursday or possibly next Tuesday. Now, that's without taking a look at at our calendars, but we
Can
could
I-
arrange something.
Don? Sure. It's important, since we're putting such a reliance on these housing starts. I've, in the last 2 days, have gone and I've talked to the builder's office of Cambridge. No, I have talked to the builder's office of the terraces of Montgomery. Under your formula, you've assumed that 1/3 of those townhouses will be online, and Cambridge Knoll also 1/3. Anyway, you've come up with 334 housing starts. The fact is that Cambridge Knoll is hoping to have 24 at most online. Terraces of Montgomery is hoping for 10 to 20 units of townhouses to be online by the first of year 2000. That's their best, most aggressive online schedule. And the other, no one can even give me the name of it, so I don't know where to call. But I would like to see us look for some hard numbers, particularly for this upcoming year, because what I'm seeing where we're allocating 334 housing starts, 35 students, what the numbers are coming out to mean is maybe 45 housing starts and, 5 to 7 students scattered amongst those starts. So with NAP's enrollment becoming so thoroughly dependent, predominantly townhouses, condos, and apartments are being moved. 95% of the existing students are coming from condos and apartments and townhouses, and all but Cambridge Knoll of the developments that are being redistricted are also townhouse units. And I don't think anyone should expect the same kind of enrollment coming from a 2- and 3-bedroom restricted townhouse community as what we get out of 4- and 5-bedroom single homes. So I'd like to at least, if you don't want to change your methodology and you want to apply a 4- and 5-bedroom home ratio to a 2-bedroom townhouse, let's at least make sure too that let's at least get so that we don't have 5 times the number of units coming on board when it's not even in the construction schedule. And that way the board can have a better picture of what we're looking at in these real housing starts.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we've been sitting for about 2 hours. Let's take 5 minutes and then I'll be audience and citizens.
First.
Mr. Golden, John Golden. Oh, John, can you close those doors in the back?
Can you check the microphones? I don't know if they can hear us.
No? Are they okay? Would the cameraman please get a picture of the spill over here by Dr. Miller? Dr. Miller. It was you, wasn't it, Dr. Miller?
Yes, it was.
Would you show him your weapon? Would you lift that picture up? Thank you. Did we get a real good close-up?
That's been a naughty day.
Why does it look like your kids haven't moved?
You're not the director. You have to be in the truck outside, then they move. That's right.
Okay. I think we can pull that truck in here, Bill.
It's a remote.
Okay. Mrs. Abrams.
Linda Abram, Upper Gwynedd. There's a lot I'd like to say. I'll keep it very brief, and I'm sure you'll be hearing from me again. As a member of the committee, I want to make it clear that the subsequent meetings that we've had just recently, the committee did unanimously continue to support Plan A. It was, however, through the efforts of the committee from public input and from board input that we felt if there was a way to move fewer children, we needed to look at that. The housing start impact changed. We looked at that. The temporary modulars, were they coming or going? There were a number of factors. I can say safely, although they're not all here, that I believe this committee would support Plan C, and I think it is a good plan. It does provide us with some cushion. It does move fewer children, and I think right now we need to move on. I left a message for Ms. Mengel today, and my request to her was we need to move on. This committee has been insulted, accused, and beat around enough. We recommended, we'd like you to move on. I just want to address one other thing, and I have a lot more to say about that, but I'm not going to go there. Just one thing about middle school, and I know Don will agree. He'll nod his head, I'm sure. At the beginning in September when we discussed this, I did raise concerns about middle school, and I felt that it needed to be coupled with elementary. As we worked through this and realized the impact and the effect that elementary redistricting was going to have, it truly was felt that we needed to deal with one issue at a time. I wholeheartedly say, however, that we need to look, there does not need to be major revisions in the middle school boundaries. Minor changes can be made to be sensitive to the children that would leave their present school but then could possibly go to middle school with the sending schools that they will then become a part of. And I urge the board to not put that off at late date, but to charge a group or whatever that you want to do, Dr. Venom and the administration, to look at that sooner than later, because I think you'll alleviate a lot of anxieties, particularly obviously of those who are moving, if their children don't have to be then separated from a newly made group of friends as they go from elementary to middle.
Okay, well, I have assigned that's the start of that analysis tomorrow to Dr. Venema. And I don't believe there's going to be the support among the board members to move the kids twice. I believe that you'll find that we're going to try and we'll make this work. I don't support the children moving twice, whether it takes a grandfathering or just don't do it, or we're over a few in this school or not, that it not happen.
My point, though, I hear what you're saying. My point is, if we could have the liberty, or if some could have the liberty of looking at some minor modifications in lines that are presently there, you may solve the problem in and of itself right there and not even have to do with the grandfathering or what have you.
Of kids that aren't here yet.
No, of what is presently middle school boundaries, accommodating now whatever you adopt as elementary boundary lines, adapting them to meet the needs of those children as far as it goes their sending schools.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name is Cindy Uretzian. I live in North Wales with my two sons. This is a little difficult. We moved up to Montgomery County from Northeast Philly 2.5 years ago. And my son Justin was starting kindergarten. And we wanted to be out of Philadelphia schools, so we moved up here. We moved across from the Montgomery Mall in the single homes that were districted to go to NAP. 6 months after we moved up here, after my son had started kindergarten, my husband was killed in a car accident. So subsequently, we had to move to the townhouses at the villages at Gwinnett Point, which meant that he had to change elementary schools. Not in mid-year. I kept him at NAP. I explained to him that he went to a different preschool, he went to a different kindergarten, he went to a different first grade. I promised him he wasn't going to move again. I'm trying real hard to keep stability in my children's lives. I'm still trying to be a stay-at-home mom. You guys are taking that and you're not realizing that these are children. They're not numbers. They're kids who deserve to have a stable school life. If I can bust my tail to make sure that I can give them a stable home life, how can you guys turn around and give them an unstable school life? That's about all I have to say. Thank you.
That's very fair. Mrs. Penniman.
Bobby Penniman, Lansdale Borough. That's very difficult to follow that.
Sure is.
During our break, I took the opportunity to go out into the lobby and to read the North Penn School District Statement of Mission, which reads in part, to ensure each student has the opportunity to achieve the vision, the North Penn School District will provide a wide range of educational programs and opportunities in a safe learning environment. To me, that's a very all-inclusive statement. It means all students, all 12,000, almost 13,000 students. Our goal in redistricting should not be to move the fewest number of students. That was never our goal when we added on and renovated the NAP facility. That's never been our goal when we've made any other changes, moving the fewest number of children. And I've heard that said a number of times tonight. I think it's incumbent upon this board to look at the good of the overall student population. And that means reducing numbers at Gwynn-Nor, where the facilities are sorely overutilized, increase the numbers at NAP, where we face the possibility of not even using all 6 classrooms, from what I hear tonight. That's outrageous. To have spent millions of dollars on a renovation and to be looking at underutilization for a period of several years is unacceptable.
I need to correct that. When I was talking about the number being used, that was in reference to next year's numbers
but not ultimately. Certainly we plan to use all those rooms.
The prospect of Bridle Path on Plan C remaining over capacity for the next 5 years should be totally unacceptable to the 700 parents, to the parents of the 700 children who are not moving. Those are the parents that we have not heard from. We've heard from a very small vocal minority of Bridle Path parents. If I were a parent at Bridle Path, and if I were faced with a first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade class of 109 students, I'd be asking this board some very strong questions about class sizes. Do we have enough room to break that 109 students into 5 classrooms? Or are we faced with 4 classrooms of 27 first graders, second graders, third graders? That's unacceptable. It would be unacceptable to me as a Bridle Path parent. I think this board should be glad that I'm not a Bridle Path parent. I would be upset with those numbers regardless of which building it were. I think that plan is unacceptable. I think it's unacceptable for this board to expect the community to sit for another year while more adjustments could be made down the road. That's ridiculous. Let's do it. We've heard so much political posturing tonight. One would almost think it's an election year. There are 9 members on this school board. There's probably many times 9 members who wished that 2 years ago I did move out of this community. But damn it, I stayed because I value the education that my child is getting in this community. I value the things that I hear the board say. And now it's time for the board to step up to the plate and deliver. Reduce my class size at Gwynmoor, reduce the class size at Bridle Path, utilize the facilities that we have just paid $3 million for at Knapp Elementary, and forget the political posturing. This board cannot be willows in the wind, and that's what I'm seeing. We don't need plan after plan after plan. Plan A was an extremely acceptable plan to the community at large, had the community at large come out to view it. The fact that the community is seeing a very small vocal number of people who are upset is testament to the fact that the majority of the community would have been happy with Plan A. Where only 1 year in one building would we be over the capacity, and that's Knapp in the year 2001 to 2002. Plan C, every year at Bridle Path. Oh, of course, we face the uncertainty. We can always move those children later. That should not be an acceptable solution. The decisions need to be made now. Ms. Mengel? In addition to a lot of political posturing tonight, from my heart, I feel compelled to say, I really believe that you were out of line this evening in some of the comments that you made. Thank you.
Okay, and
Is that a campaign speech?
well, I thought it was your campaign speech too, Bob.
I'm Ellen Strauss, and I'm from Montgomery Township, as well as being a parent from Gwinnett Point. Throughout the evening, as I heard people speaking, there were several issues that I thought about. One being looking at the numbers. I am alarmed at the numbers for Bridle Path and Plan C. And I'm also not satisfied with that because that tells me there will be redistricting down the line. And having been, this will be our 3rd time that our community is being moved, I'm not comfortable knowing that I'm not guaranteed to be moved again somewhere down the line. And that has been my greatest fear. It's not an issue of Knapp is 4 minutes from my house, Gwynnor is 4 minutes from my house. Either one can satisfy my needs. I'm concerned about these frequent moves and moving the smallest amount of group, which happens to be my community, mind you. We are the smallest group. That's not fair to our kids. That's my first point. My second point is, I think the middle school issue is a major issue. My daughter's going to leave her school with 6 kids in her grade, 6 children, go to a new school, and not be guaranteed that those friends that she makes at that school will not be her friends in middle school. That's not acceptable. You know, you're going to yank her away, and I've maintained that my child will adjust because I'm going to help her adjust. And my little one will start kindergarten next year, and she will adjust. But that is not a fair issue, to take my child, actually both of my children, and say, here, make new friends, which they will because they're great kids. And then say, I'm sorry, they can't be your friends anymore because now you're going to go back to where your old friends are, if they want to be your friends again, because maybe you'll have new friends because everybody changes as they get older. You never know. That's not fair. I want to guarantee that if you're moving me, you leave me there, because history predicates that my community keeps getting moved. Because, quote, as I hear tonight, smallest numbers. Well, that's my community. Of 900 some homes in my community, 41 children live there. We're a transient community. The majority of the folks are single or just married, just getting started. They get relocated, and the majority of them don't have young children going into school. That's not fair, and I don't want to see that continue. I will support if you move me, but don't go doing it again, because I'm going to be a bull in a china cabinet at that point, because my kids come first in my life. The third point I have is kindergarten enrollment is in a few weeks. Why aren't we waiting to see what the enrollment that week is going to show for projections for next year? That's going to be an indication of where we're going. I mean, I know that that 1 week in itself isn't going to be conclusive, but it's going to give some indications of where are we headed for next year. That's something I think needs to be taken into consideration looking at these numbers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mrs. Strauss. Yes, please.
Good evening. My name is Dorothy Hoban, and I live in Montgomery Township in Gwynmont Farms, one of the affected areas to be moved in Plan A and B. I just want to make a couple comments. One, it sounds to me like for a number of members of the board that anything short of 100% capacity is wasted money, which I don't feel is the case. Obviously, at some point in the past, Gwynnor was underutilized and the enrollment continued to increase. And yes, there are a number of kids that are jammed into that school to utilize whatever capacity because there was no place else to go. But you didn't have a plan for the future, so they continue to be there. Now at least you have an open space for the new developments that are going to occur. And I think that that was wonderful, that you were able to find a cost-effective way to plan for the future. They will be used. Number two, it seems like many of the board members perhaps made up their mind about what was going to happen with the redistricting either 2 years ago when you decided to add on to Knapp Elementary rather than Gwynnor, or at the December 6th meeting, because Plan A was what was originally proposed by the committee rather than Plan C, which comes after A. It sounded like many of you were just going to rubber stamp the first plan that came across the board, and I urge you not to do that. Mr. Sierpinski seems to have taken a great deal of time to get in touch with the numbers. He seems to have a really good basis of the numbers, and whatever you decide to do, at least you're getting in touch with what's happening in Montgomery Township. And the final point that I'd like to make is that regardless of what happens with this redistricting, we feel unwanted almost anywhere we go. Gwynnor obviously has selected us as being expendable because we're the ones that overpopulate their school, when in fact we're already there. We all overpopulate the school to the same degree. If you put us at Knapp, I mean, our particular development is equally distant between Knapp and Gwynnor, and it's never going to change because we can't move the development. So we become a king and a giant checker match at some point in the future when Knapp becomes overpopulated and Gwynnor is underutilized. And I can just see us at some point being moved again, whether it's with the middle school redistricting or whether it's again with elementary school. But aside from that, I see if they choose Plan C, we're also the ones that lucked out of this whole thing by not having to leave Gwen Nor. But does Gwen Nor really want us? And that's my concern for myself and my children going forward. When you put a plan forward, sometimes the first plan is the first impression for everybody, and they want to take that into consideration only. And that can't happen. But I don't want to walk away from here feeling like we're the ones that caused all this problem, so we should just go quietly. We can't do that. We're all here, every single one of us, whatever side we're on, we are here fighting for our children. And that's the last thing that I have to say for you. We are fighting for our children. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Hi, Craig Roy, Upper Gwinnett. First of all, I have a lot to say here, but I'll try to limit it. It just seems to me that it's time for this board to make a decision. I mean, there's been talk tonight that we'll have more meetings on this. We've been going around on this since September, I think, when the committee started meeting. And there's been several meetings for public input, and it appears that we're no closer to resolving this now than we were back in September. I mean, as a taxpayer, it upsets me. It looks like, I mean, I don't think we can allow the expenditures of millions of dollars for NAP to see it become underutilized. I mean, I know there's talk that we may not fill up all classrooms next year, but I think that's the expectation when this was built, when the addition was built, that it would be up to capacity when they open the doors. Trying to think. I mean, it just seems to me that trying to waste more of our tax dollars coming up with a perfect plan, or using our tax dollars to turn temporary mods into permanent mods, or hiring aides for schools that may not need aides if we adopted redistricting, it's just a waste of our money. I mean, the time has come now to move on this. I mean, Gwen Nor is overcrowded. Bridle Path is overcrowded. I mean, why go around and around? We have 3 plans that may not be perfect, but they're workable. And the board needs to make a decision now. I mean, every day we delay is more money wasted and more time wasted by everybody. Lastly, I guess the last thing I want to say is there was a remark by a board member that said that Bridle Path parents are willing to fight for their kids. The inference there was that it implies that Gwen Nor parents are not. There's been talk that Gwen Nor parents don't want that want people out of their school. I don't know any parent in Gwen Nor who wants to see a kid redistricted out of the school.
I do.
Well, good. I'm glad you do, because I haven't heard it.
And the point with Bridle Path is there has been no uprising whatsoever among the parents, teachers, secretaries, and whoever else chooses to get into political phrase at Bridle Path. They have been civil. They have been a model community of people that don't want each other to leave. They have been exemplary. And a lot of that credit, I believe, has to go to their principal, Bonnie Rosen. They have been remarkable people. I've never seen anything like it, the way they've handled this situation. They are an anomaly, they are unique, and they deserve some praise.
May I finish now?
Sure, you try to address me. Next time, just name me.
Okay.
Okay.
I did name you. You're the one who made it. Now,
Thank you.
if I may finish.
Sure.
I don't think that, I mean, maybe you know specific people
Yes, I
in
do.
Gwen Nor.
Yes,
I
I do.
don't. Okay.
Okay, so you don't know what you're talking about, but I do.
First of all, ma'am, because I'm not aware of what you're aware of doesn't mean I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'm telling you that parents have asked for specific groups to go, yes.
Okay, fine.
Okay?
All I'm saying is, okay, you know that I don't.
Okay.
You've privy to information that I don't know.
That's correct.
That's news to me. Most of the parents that I know, that I have spoken to, don't want to see these kids leave. But we don't want to see our kids in overcrowded classrooms. I mean, I know our kids they're upset, certainly not to the degree of these kids, but our kids are upset that they're going to lose these kids. We're upset that we're going to lose these parents. but something does have to be done. I mean, and I don't think that people who favor redistricting or see that it needs to be done, we're not doing it out of malice. We're not doing it because we want certain people out of our school. We just want to...
I think it's best that you speak specifically for yourself. We have fielded so many phone calls into our homes, our businesses, our working day, and there's plenty of malice. Trust me. I think all the board members here can pretty well agree to some of that.
Yeah, but
based on the phone calls.
But there's plenty of malice, but that doesn't mean that it's blanket malice. That doesn't mean that...
I didn't say it was blanket. What are you trying to accuse me of?
I'm not trying to accuse you of anything, but I'm just not, I don't think that, sure, I guess there is malice, there's probably malice everywhere, but I don't think that it's like you made a blanket statement that, I mean, I think there are people in Gwen-Norr that want to fight, that want to see people in their district. We don't want, there are a lot of Gwen-Norr parents that just don't want to, that want to see people removed. Maybe there are a lot that do. But I think most Gwen-Norr parents that want to see redistricting done or want to see this addressed, we want to see our interest represented fully too. We want to see our tax money spent wisely, and I don't think it's being spent wisely now. I mean, we just keep going over and over and no decisions are made. This board should make a decision. That's what you're here to do. Please do it. Thank you.
Mr. Griffin?
George Griffin, Montgomery Township. By the way, congratulations to everyone for option C. I think it shows a lot of imagination. Also, it does help my problem, but the thing that I like the most about it, it gives you flexibility. If things do happen that are unexpected, you have some room to move. Second point, which I warned everyone I was going to say this. If we put more planning together, start watching the communities, get, send the fruit basket Christmas time to the planning commissions of these communities. Find out what's happening so you could do some proper planning. I think because when you look at a 2-year to a 4-year horizon before a new development comes up, I know in my development it was even longer than that, close to 10 years, but by the time it finally, the development was finished. I really think you should put something either in this district or up at the IU just to really watch these communities and where they're planning to build, what they're trying to do. As I mentioned several weeks ago, Lansdale could take some of its old rusty, dusty environments, tear some of those buildings that are vacant down and put townhouses up. The federal government's promoting this type of thing. That can easily happen. It can happen overnight. If we're not watching those types of things, you're going to get nailed in Lansdale. The second thing, in regards to the temporaries over at Gwen-Norr, I wouldn't think that quickly in regards to getting rid of them. Yes, there is some problems with tight spaces there. It would be nice to have a permanent music room. It would be nice to be able to potentially do some, reduce some of the crowding in regards to the works that are going on in the hallways. You may want to defer that decision to another meeting, like get it off the table today, because I think it's really two issues. Do we want to have more capacity at Gwen-Norr by leaving those temporaries there? Yes, it's spending money, but I think it might be money well spent, especially in regards to where technology is going. The idea of the technology lab would be very attractive, especially help bring this school district up a little bit higher than is what's currently being recognized. So, again, thank you again for option C.
Mrs. Rose Martier.
Good evening. Pauline Rosemartier, Shepherd, Lansdale. My children are in Gwen-Norr Elementary School, and I think I'm doing my math correctly. If there's 41 going from Gwinnett Point and 42 from Church Road, that's 83 leaving. However, if we take out the 2 temporaries, that's, say, maybe, and I'm not positive how many are in each class, but say 25 in a class. So that's 50. So really all you're changing is 33 students out of Gwen-Norr. So that's maybe giving us 1 classroom. And I'm really concerned with that. I'm in that school a lot. I'm on the Home and School Association. I'm very involved. And I know that board members came last week to visit the school. I thank you for that. You had to have, and as you have said, we are filled. Every nook and cranny is filled at Gwynn Nor. And my children are eating, they're eating a little after 11. They're not hungry. They just ate breakfast. Then they don't eat the rest of the day. They're starving by the time they get home. I can't believe that the school is not a fire hazard. I really can't. And I know you're saying, okay, look at the numbers. It's 625 is our capacity, and according to the totals, we haven't gotten there. But yet, if you walk through the halls, it is so hard to believe that. And my students wouldn't move on any of these plans. I mean, my children wouldn't move, and that's a relief. And I feel for the parents who would have to move, and I wouldn't want to if I was one of them. But if you look at what the children really need, they need the education, and I can't see how this is providing the best education. And the teachers at Gwynn Nor are wonderful. I mean, my children's teachers, they have always had wonderful teachers, great support. They're trying so hard to do the best they can. And I can't imagine that the bridal path teachers are any less. I'm sure they're wonderful. And I would not want those numbers in my school. You're saying they don't care. If I were there, I would. So I have to say I would rather have option A. It's easier with option C because less move. However, I'm really not sure that we're really taking care of the children with option C. I think we're just making, I don't know, I just think we have to put the children first and their education, and as a parent in Gwynn Nor, this is not going to help. I don't care what numbers you show me here, this is not going to help. And I'd also like to add to please take into consideration, and I know it's been said, the middle school, and you can't just do the elementary without considering the middle school. Thank you.
Hello, my name's Barbara McCormick. I live in Montgomery Township, and I live in Glenmont Farms, and I'm glad that maybe somebody doesn't want to move us. I don't take it personal from the committee. I never did. I knew it was a job that had to be done, and somebody has to go. So I have no mouth, you know. A few things. I do not think you built the NAP extension to fill it to capacity the first year. That makes no sense, because then the following years are going to be over capacity at all the schools with the new development. So I cannot believe that you would do that. Second, to have 27 kids in a class is no big deal. Maybe these parents have not had to deal with large class sizes, but I have. My children came from Philadelphia. They were in the parochial school system. They had 40 to 45 kids in a class, and they test just as well, if not better, than the kids that have had 20 to 23 kids in a classroom. So if you're telling me that a teacher who makes $17,000 or $18,000 a year teaches better than someone who makes $55,000 and teaches 23 kids, then I think maybe we should look elsewhere for our teachers. That's all.
Jean Marie Meisel, Montgomery Township, Gwinnett Point Development. Now, I could just on a side tell you that when I went to grade school, in the same school where her children started, there were 56 kids in my class. So, class size, I think 27 is half empty, of course. Nonetheless, I'm up here for 41. Breaks down in the numbers that I have, because I only have access to a phone directory that we get through the school, of 8 first graders, 7 second graders, 5 third graders, 4 fourth graders, 4 fifth graders, and 7 kindergartners. These children are upset, distraught, confused, and I still don't know what to tell them. They don't want to leave their school because the Gwinnett Point community is not a neighborhood. It is a community. We have children scattered amongst 900 homes. Their community and their recreation revolves around a doo-wop dance, a bingo night, a market day pickup. This is where our children see their children and socialize from Gwinnett Point. We do not have continuity. We were moved in '94, and granted, no child today was affected by that move. But what these plans tell us is that we can be expected to be moved again. I've sent letters to all the board members asking what was the rationalization for moving us in '94 from NAP? And I have not received an answer. I'm asking why 41 versus 38 is being considered to be moved. And I still don't have an answer for that. I'm also looking at this plan, and I'm looking at Gwinnett Square, and I'm alarmed that no one has brought Gwinnett Square up tonight, because I see a school that is running under capacity by 77, 78, and in 5 years, 134 children. Ladies and gentlemen, I know some people are real tired of this meeting and these continuous meetings, but I would think it would be in the best interest of the 11,000 children in this district for this board to do a total redistricting. We know that we have schools that are being taxed not only by children and numbers, but facilities that are falling apart with buildings that are separating with big cracks, but we don't know what the crack is, but as long as it doesn't continue and affect the welfare of the children, it's an okay thing. I'm sorry, but I really believe that a task that big is difficult, but I don't see how anyone could look at Gwinnett Square, see totals going up in Bridle Path, see numbers going up in all these other schools up and down, that you don't see or identify a need to look at this whole district. And just one more thing that I need to add. If Plan C is the only thing that we can come up with, and we do a redistricting or about the middle schools, I will share with you my personal problem here. I have 2 children back to back, a first grader and a second grader. This would tell me that my second grader could go to Penndale if that's the decision that's made for the sending school of all the students of NAP. But in 5 years, if you tell me that NAP is overcrowded because Bridle Path got over capacity, and you come back to Gwinnett Point because we're always the ones that are picked, I will have a son go back to Gwynn Nor and go to Pembroke. So I will have, for 3 years, 1 child in Pembroke and 1 child in Penndale. So I'm asking you to listen to the needs and the well-being of the children in Gwinnett Point. We need consistency, and we have many tax dollars that get put into this district from people that will never have children in this district. I'm asking you to please reconsider a whole redistricting so that it's in the well-being of houses starts that haven't started, but projections that you know, and that it's fair to all the students in the district. Thank you.
Claudia Herman, 110 Gwynmont Circle, Montgomery Township. I'd like to thank many of the people on the board for taking time, lots of time, to speak with me, mostly to listen to me, I must say. You know, this isn't just a Gwynn Nor problem, and this is not just a Montgomery Elementary problem, and this isn't a Bridle Path problem. This is a Montgomery Township problem. You know, I mean, I've said a lot of things. I feel certain ways. I'm not going to take it back. I do believe what I've said. But beyond all that, and I don't feel like I'm, you know, thank you for Plan C. I feel really good about that. But I've got friends in Gwinnett Point, and you know what? I know what they're going through. Our development was moved in '91 to Gwynn Nor because it was underutilized. Here we go, history again. We want to fill NAP, so let's move Gwynn Nor, Gwynmont Farms, and Gwinnett Point and Montgomery Commons. I look at these projections and I say in 5 years, what's going to happen when Bridle Path, if Bridle Path becomes overcapacity, we shove them into NAP, we look at the small numbers of Gwynmont Farms, Gwinnett Point, Montgomery Commons, and we put them back into Gwynn Nor. History has repeated itself. We see that. This is not rocket science stuff. We know that this can happen. So my kindergartner, if we go with Plan A, will go back to Gwynn Nor in 5 years, possibly. We don't know what's happening in Montgomery Township. I'm telling you now, NAP better fasten their seatbelt because they're going to be on the Montgomery Township, Mr. Toad, wild ride, overpopulation, out of control development that we've all lived through at Gwynn Nor, Montgomery, and at Bridle Path. Plan C, yeah, it leaves room for some of this to happen, but I still believe we have a Montgomery Township problem here. It's a big problem. It's not going away. It's not going away next year. It's not going away the year after. 3 to 5 years. It's not going to hit the fan probably for 3 to 5 years. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your efforts. I've said a million things 1,000 times.
People think I'm emotional and crazy, so be it. I'm fighting for my children. And the people here who are fighting for their children, I hear you. But you're not the ones in this redistricting, and most of you have not been in redistrictings. We have. Gwinnett Point has. We know what it is. Maybe my kids weren't, but my neighbors' kids were. And the chances of it happening again to us are great, and that's why we're fighting. If you put me in Knapp and said, Mrs. Herman, your kids will stay there, your kindergartner will graduate from Knapp, I would say, fine, move me there. But you haven't convinced me through these plans that that's going to happen. You haven't convinced any of us that that's going to happen. And unless you can do that, don't tell us not to be upset. Don't tell us not to be emotional. Don't tell us not to be combative. We have every right to feel this way. These are our children. And we're supposed to sacrifice our children for the greater good of Gwynn Nor. Well, I'd like to ask all the parents here tonight, would you do it for the greater good of your school? Thank you.
Anybody else, please? Yes. You can come around. Oh.
Good evening. My name is Barbara Nestor, and I've come to a lot of these meetings, but I'm not a public speaker, and I don't like getting up here at the podium. I live in Upper Gwinnett. I'm one of the 42 that will be moved to Gwinnett Square, and we're not happy about leaving Gwynn Nor. But by looking at the map, I don't see any alternative. With everything coming in from Montgomeryville, we're closer to Gwinnett Square, so it makes sense to send us. By leaving Gwynn Nor overcrowded, you're compromising the children's education, and I just think it's something that really needs to be addressed. And I would like to hope that it wouldn't happen again, but I'll just have to help my children through it. That's all. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Nestor. Anybody else, please? Okay. Dr. Hassan.
Okay, next on the agenda, we have topic elementary report cards. And in dialogue during our break, I think for the sake of time and also to provide some time for everyone who has a copy of the report card, this is not a rush, we would ask you to take a look at the report card, and we would like to put it back on the work session in March and answer any of your questions. I would say that this is a revised report card because we feel that, number one, it doesn't match our current programs, and also that we want to align it to the standards in Pennsylvania. But I also want to make it clear that the new standards in Pennsylvania do not require us to have a report card as we're presenting. We feel it's important, though, as we look at the standards, we look at the PSSA test, that we align our programs to what we think is a good movement by the state. I would also like to take this opportunity to say that at the February Educational Services Committee and also at the March workshop, I'll be presenting what I think is also important for us to do is take a look at our assessment system that's in place in the district to better align to the state assessment. And we'll be making a presentation on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Next on the agenda is a recommendation for the 1999-2000 calendar and also the 2000-2001 calendar. Just a quick overview, both of these calendars include 182 instructional days for students and 187 days for teachers. In 1999-2000, next year, Labor Day falls on September 6th. We're proposing that teachers put in 2 professional days, September 1 and 2, and that school begins on Tuesday, September 7th for students. There are 2 professional days during the school year, one on November 2nd and one on April 25th, which also coincides with election days. The last day for students in 1999-2000 calendar would be June 9th, and the last day for teachers would be June 12th. Following that is the 2000 and 2001 calendar, and this is the first time we propose a 2-year calendar, but we feel that if we can do this, it would give parents ample time to plan for the next 2 years. Labor Day in 2000-2001 is on September 4th. Our recommendation includes professional days on September 5th and 6th. and beginning with the first day on Thursday, September 7th. That calendar also includes 2 professional days during the school year, again aligned with election days. The last day during the 2000-2001 calendar would be June 12th for students and June 13th for teachers.
Any board questions starting to the left?
No.
Around?
I go.
Yes, sir.
Oh, go ahead, go ahead.
I'm learning. My only consideration is in the 99-2000 September, having the teachers start first and second. If we had them start on the 7th and the students start on the 9th, I know that would bump graduation and all that stuff later, and maybe that's worse than having them start before the holiday there. And that's just a personal preference. I don't know how it impacts you.
You want teachers to start before? They're already doing that.
Yeah. They're starting before. I'd just as soon have them start Tuesday, Wednesday, and then school starts Thursday.
The week before?
Preference, that's all.
No.
After Labor Day.
Instead of having the in-service
You're
day
gonna
the
have to push
first
it out
and
in
second,
June.
have the in-service days on the 7th and 8th, and have the students report at night. But if I'm not mistaken, I think, didn't we have this last year, and there was a reason because
I know
the
there's
teachers
a
come in on the weekends and work.
They have to come in the week before for not only in service, but to prepare
Yeah, I
the
thought they
classroom.
came in on the weekends too.
No, remember we had,
We went through this
we
last
had
year.
difficulty getting people in Friday before the holiday. So they accommodated that schedule by making it earlier in the week for training for them, so that they didn't have to do that.
We went through this last year, I would think.
Yeah, only because the days were rolling over late
It was
in
a
the year.
long weekend.
Yeah, well, we couldn't get
We
our
did
staff
have
to show
over
up on
90%
Friday.
of the teachers though that day.
Pardon?
We did have over 90% of the teachers on that Friday. The reason why we propose starting before Labor Day with teachers is that then that doesn't bump us into the following week for students in June, that we can end on the
I know,
9th
that's
on
the
Friday.
handoff, and I don't know which is more critical to the teachers and to the students and the parents, that's all.
It gives you a little more latitude too if you have snow days.
Right.
And you have to make up days at the end of the year. You have
Yeah.
more opportunity to do that without pushing things too far back.
Back to the end of June.
Right. So that was a consideration.
Okay, that's all.
Yeah, Dr. Robinson, I think I asked this at our committee meeting, but I'll ask it again because I don't remember your answer if I did. Are we going to pilot this report card next quarter or next time?
Are we, so you wanna
So you're on
I think we're on a calendar. now.
Oh, well,
Table this for a month.
she
You
didn't
have to
ask the
wait till
questions, I
next
just,
month.
she moved on, I wanted to ask her, that's all.
That's right.
Are we
She
piloting
didn't
it?
answer questions on what? It was bumped.
The report card. I just asked her if she's piloting it this year. That's all I'm answering for. She can say yes and it'll be over.
This school year? This school year? No.
No, thank you. Fall asleep over there? I'll fax you next time.
You're out of order. I think what came out of our committee meeting was we were going to start to get the information out as soon as possible.
Yeah, I just want to make sure we weren't going to.
No, I don't think we talked about
Okay,
finance.
Vince, you get your answer.
I apologize.
Thank
No,
you.
nobody's
Go ahead, Donald.
apologizing.
I'm done.
You're done. Mr. Allen?
We're done.
You don't remember.
I just wonder which one of these affects middle school redistricting.
Oh, way to
Yeah.
go, Bill.
Thank you, Bill. Well,
We'll never get out of the Japanese artifacts.
Bill, next time you're confused, just send up a flare.
Bring it up again.
Mrs. Sheriff?
Do we have the amount of early dismissal days that'll be attached to this? Because it's not here for
Not
the,
yet, we're working on that right now.
that's to come at a later date. I think actually we're better when we move those in-service days ahead of the student calendar, because we end up with them just starting up, and there are a few holidays that hit very early in the year, in September and October. And outside of looking forward to seeing how many early dismissal days we propose, my only question is reassurances that we actually checked all the way through to the 2001 year to make sure we didn't hit any sensitive holidays here by mistake.
We were careful.
We did.
Well, I'm gonna trust you guys for that. I'm not figuring one out. Okay.
Mr. Schilling?
Thank you.
No questions. Okay, folks, let's just move to the agenda. Yeah, guys. All right. Okay, before and after school childcare, base.
It's going to be a quick comment. Each one of the board members tonight should have received a draft, and I emphasize draft, of a proposed contract for base in the ensuing years. That contract is still under negotiation with the base supplier. I hope to have it resolved before this evening, but unfortunately it is not. I hope to get some resolution to some of the questions that I've discussed personally with her next week, and if I do and we can bring this forward, I'll be communicating either verbally or by written word to all the board members relative to what we propose as a contract to vote on. Other than that, I would like to not discuss it any further at this time, since it's under negotiation.
Question, if I may?
Yes.
Could we email questions to you if we have any?
Yes, any questions you can
We haven't even had a chance to
email or fax them to me.
Do you have email?
I have email.
You have a computer?
I have a computer. Do I know how to use it? No. I have a computer. So you can send me all the emails you want.
Can you write down your address?
My address is
right hand?
Grumpy Don, AOL. Is that it? That's it. I swear.
AOL.
That's my personality.
At AOL.com.
AOL. Grumpy Don at AOL.
GRUMP.
Don't put that in the press. I don't need any more emails.
Any other questions to the left?
Just low profile.
Low profile.
Mr. Shapinsky?
I know what the delete button is.
I have a question for Grumpy Don.
Yes.
Originally, the board asked, we got an extension for 30 days on our approval.
Yes.
And my understanding of the initial renewal process is that if we can't work out these contract issues, then at the end of this month, we will be forced to vote to put this out to bid.
Yes.
Is that my understanding of the process?
We have several options. One is to put it out to bid, or we can decide to do the program ourselves, or take several options to do that. Or we can elect to, if we can't reach an agreement, the board could elect to roll the contract over as it exists for another year and pursues one of those other options in the ensuing year. So those are the options we have to face, but I don't want to make those choices tonight or even discuss those tonight until I get some feedback from her on a couple of options that I asked her to take a look at.
Okay.
Wait a minute, Don.
Wait a minute. Bill Allen?
Don, I read this quickly tonight. Other than the dollar amount for the monthly, or the daily fee, are there any significant changes?
No. It was kind of, most of this contract was rewritten to put it more in a meaningful package. And the only areas in that contract that is different that you'll notice in there, one is the money, of course, which is a big stumbling block. Number two is the liability went from $1 million to $2 million.
And the date.
And the date for renewal, instead of being end of January, to make it March 15th.
Okay.
Other than that, basically the contract is the same.
Okay, thank you.
Peggy?
Yeah, Don, I think what Vince was asking about where we stand by this delay, I believe in committee you said that Nancy Shaw has already agreed to allow us to extend the period if because part of this has been your inability for her and you to get back together.
Yes, she understands, but she also hopes to get back to us so we can resolve it this month.
But we could also come
Yes.
back at the next meeting and just vote to extend the period from the
Yes.
last motion
Yes.
for discussions
We
and
actually
dialogue.
have to, though, right? I mean, that's our time frame, 30 days, or is it sometime in March?
Contract is 30 days.
No,
The extension.
Oh, the extension,
The notice to her, whether we're going to renew or what we're going to do, was not, on the old contract, was the end of January. The new contract says March 15th. Gives us more time to do that.
Mr. Schilling? Yes, question.
March 15th, we would normally have our action meeting the third Thursday, which is...
Well, March 15th was just to give us an extension of time.
That's what I mean, it should make it the third Thursday, or the third Friday
Around the 20th.
of the month. of March rather than the 15th.
We may have a problem with March 15th with her. She's debating when we may maybe go back to March 1st. That's one of the other things we're negotiating.
It doesn't help us any to take it to the middle of March if we don't have an action meeting.
But at least it's the extra 10 days better than January. Gives us another month.
Yeah, we got an
Yeah,
action meeting
yeah.
on the 18th, though, 3 days later.
Well, we'll work those things out. That date is kind of was an arbitrary date.
Okay, last item, and then after this item, there'll be another audience of citizens for any of those matters that came up after the redistricting. Preliminary budget calendar.
Last thing on the agenda is a tentative preliminary budget calendar. Basically, what it entails is presentations to the Finance Committee. There's a number of extra Finance Committees meetings that have been scheduled throughout February, March, and into April. When we say Finance Committee, we're also obviously talking about the entire board attending if possible. We've set up the presentations and the follow-up to hit every one of the areas that we felt were major areas in the budget, beginning with the presentation, taking questions, and then coming back at the next scheduled meeting with the follow-up to any of the questions. It also provides cabinet time to work on questions, et cetera, in between those meetings. Obviously, these dates were arrived at, in a sense, by taking a look at last year's calendar, working together with the administration, sitting with Mr. Sowers, and trying to plan this out. And what we're doing is putting this before you tonight to get some feedback whether this calendar is a doable calendar or if there's some dates that conflict and that we need to take a look at.
I would just...
Go ahead, Mr. Moser.
Thank you. The 17th of February, we have a JOC meeting that night, Madam President. And they're working on their budget also, so I don't know if I want to miss that meeting.
Okay, would you circle that? You'll be losing 3 board members.
Now, the 16th would be okay, if you want to have back-to-back meetings, but...
No, that's a cabinet discussion.
The 17th is a joint operating committee meeting with the VOTEC, and 3 of us are on that committee, and I'm vice chair.
I have a meeting that night, too, that I would rather
Okay, there's 4.
not miss, but I can.
Why don't we just circle the 4th, the 17th?
Bob, would it be okay if we just presented, maybe got back to you this week with the dates on this chart that are problem? Because I see you have a couple, and not to draw this out, but you have a couple others you have scheduled the nights we have finance committee meetings scheduled. Now, were you trying to?
Oh, they are
Yeah, sure.
Trying to combine them.
Sure.
Well, I didn't know if you were trying to couple them up or not.
16th I can't make.
Which?
16th.
That's cabinet.
February 16th, if you want to do it February 16th.
No, I said.
I think we should all supply dates and then go for the most people because.
Yeah. If you could give me a call tomorrow and let me know, that would be helpful, so then I can also sit with Don.
I can't make any
schedule
dates.
the meeting that we talked about with redistricting.
Whatever they are.
Between now and next week.
Am I to understand this right, though, that those who say finance meetings are simply the finance committee meetings, which you're just hoping other board members will attend as we had them last year?
Well,
They're specifically for the finance meeting.
Not hoping, I want.
Well, I wanted to, but the board work sessions are the ones that are designated on our regular board meetings. The others are the finance committee meetings dates, and that's why they were.
I gave this the first go-round at the presentation and fielding questions and coming back at the following meeting and work sessions.
Bob, let me ask you, it was an issue last year, and this committee structure just didn't allow it to be integrated. If we are going to, say, the education committee meetings in, say, February or March, or whether it's the facilities meetings, will there be the budget discussions there so that each of those committees are reviewing their aspects of the budget, or is it going to be the finance committee that's allowed to override into that territory?
Well, I think what we do is probably provide an update. I'm just not sure at this point that the dates all work with each other, so you can take everything first to the committee and then to the finance committee.
Well, I just wondered, is finance going to have the jurisdiction to say, you know, technology is approving plans and going through consensus and et cetera, and then you get to the finance and they're not really, they're really dealing with the packaging.
Why, as we put this together, we talked about the full board rather than just the finance committee to get feedback, and then we would come back at a work session with a presentation.
I think that was our intent on our finance meeting.
Right.
Okay, Mr. Schilling, any questions? Anybody else?
So we'll get back to Dr. Hassett
Let me know
if there's any conflicts by the state.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, any last comments this evening before we close the meeting?
Jean Marie Meisel, Montgomery Township. I have a question about the school calendar. I know, and that's not so much the calendar, it's more regarding announcement of teacher assignments for families. It seems to be a new baby tradition that when a Labor Day falls late in the month of September, vacation resorts and hospitality industry tend to reduce rates that week before Labor Day and make it very appealing for those of us that don't start school until the day after Labor Day to take advantage of a vacation. That being said, I'm wondering, is there any possibility that the teacher assignments for the children could be posted before that Friday, before Labor Day, when we start school on a Tuesday?
That's very fair.
And I have to say that beyond that, and maybe you can look at this in the future, why do we wait so long to post these teacher assignments when I can ask people, I have relatives up and down the East Coast, and they tell me, and in districts just as large as ours, that their children have an idea of who their teachers are when they leave. I know you can put a disclaimer on, this is your teacher, subject to change. So many of us purchase things, do things where rates are subject to change. So I'm wondering if we can consider this as something new to do for our district to perhaps relieve us parents of very anxious children that want to know who their teachers are.
Okay. All righty.
Okay.
Thank you.
Can you answer that, Betty?
I was just going to say, it's something we can look at, but from experience, I can tell you in all honesty that principals are working up until 3 o'clock, 3:30 that day, because there's so much change that comes in.
Well, I understand that, but I think that subject to change is a fair statement.
And I just wanted to say to you, and I understand that sounds easy, but having experience with elementary grade students, if they see their name posted with a teacher, and we've had to make those changes, it's been devastating to kids.
But why does it work other places and have been doing it for you? Could we see what their success is at doing it, maybe?
We can look at it, but my point to you is we are working really up until the last minute.
Because it's really unfair to wait for 4 o'clock, and then for those that didn't wait, there was such a jam at the front door the first day of school because kids whose parents didn't take them to see who their teachers were, you couldn't get in the building. I just think that with the technology that we have today, there has got to be a more up-to-date system of getting that information to parents.
We'll take a look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Any other comments? Mr. Vigilante?
Can I say something not on the agenda, please?
Oh, sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
I believe the tax committee is looking into using Berkheimer Associates.
Yes.
Well, there's a consideration. Let me just say, and I really hate to complain, however, Hatfield Township has been using them for some time now, a year or 2 years, I'm not sure what it is. In all the meetings that I've been attending over the years, I don't think I've heard of more complaints from any one group of whatever than Berkheimer Associates. I've heard people complain the same problem year after year. I've heard the commissioners have complained about things. I myself am now going through a problem that I'm very dissatisfied with.
I'm not sure what they're complaining about. They normally use them for tax collectors.
Correct.
We're not anywhere near that phase of this discussion or hiring anybody for that purpose at this time.
Okay.
We're trying to find out whether the whole tax law is worth putting on the ballot. And then if it gets on the ballot and it gets passed, then we got to consider who's going to collect the taxes.
Well,
so
my point then simply is that if they are going to do this, whatever it is you want them to do, like they collect income tax, then I suggest you don't use them because I'm really unhappy with them.
I appreciate
and so are a lot of other people. So I'm just asking that you pay attention. And perhaps you could check with the commissioners at Hatfield Township.
We get that far down the line, we will.
Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else? Motion to adjourn?